to go ahead and introduce you to our panelists. So first we have Ms. Rachel Rodriguez. She is an attorney and business owner who is running as a candidate to be our next Florida governor. Her campaign emphasizes constitutional government, ethics, accountability, and faith-based servant leadership. She's positioned herself as someone who wants Florida to remain economically strong while protecting individual rights. Please help us welcome Ms. Rachel Rodriguez. Next, we have Mr. Tim Ritchie. He is our Florida Citizen Water Czar. Tim Ritchie is a tireless environmental advocate who knows exactly what AI data center infrastructure means for Florida's most precious resource, water. He's been fighting the fight for longer than most people even knew it existed. He is the president of March Against Mosaic, and please help us welcome Tim Ritchie. Next, our next candidate is running for Congress in Florida's 16th district, which represents DeSoto County. He's a man who believes America should lead the world on our terms, with our values, and with our citizens protected. He is pro-America. As a candidate for Congress, Eddie Spear has been talking with residents across our region about balancing economic growth, national security, and protecting the communities we call home. Please help me welcome Mr. Eddie Spear. Our next voice and our first voice tonight, following the introductions, will be Ms. Keegan Mingy. Keegan is here to open this conversation the way it really deserves to be open, not talking about infrastructure, not talking about policy, not talking about water, but talking about people. She is a sounding alarm on what AI is doing to our culture, our children, our identity, and our humanity. Please help me welcome Keegan. Next, we have Ms. Julie McCormick. She's a candidate for Florida House District 76. She's a conservationist, a farmer, an entrepreneur, and a community advocate. Julie believes protecting Florida's natural resources and supporting responsible growth go hand in hand. Her campaign focuses on conservation, agriculture, local communities, and government accountability. Please join me in welcoming Julie. I already introduced you to Mr. John Arguello. But again, he is a journalist, an Army combat vet, and he is an AI policy advocate. We appreciate you, John. Thank you. Our next panelist is Nick Salinitro. He brings much to this conversation this evening. He brings the independent media and thoughtful conversations together. Nick is the co-host of the Nick and Colton Show and has become known for interviewing newsmakers, candidates, and experts while helping everyday citizens better understand the issues that affect their communities. And most recently, his focus has been on AI data centers. He's not afraid of tough questions and brings an understanding of some complex issues to light for citizens. Please help us welcome. Back and forth between resources, so bear with me. Cullen Andrews is an independent journalist, media professional, and community advocate. He is dedicated to keeping citizens informed through accurate, transparent reporting, and he is passionate about public engagement and open to dialogue. He works to help communities access reliable information so they can make informed decisions about the issues that affect them most. Please welcome Cullen. Before we get started, and the reason the television is on is Mr. Paul Renner could not be here this evening, but he did send it to be played for all of you.
I'm sorry I can't join you in person, but glad to join you by video. For those that don't know me, let me say a few words about the governor's race and then talk about AI data centers and the AI technology generally. First of all, you want a governor who's a proven leader, who's been battle tested. So my background, at age 23, I was navigating through mine-infested waters as a young officer during Operation Desert Storm on the deck of the USS McInerney, and also leading a small boat team to destroy those mines. 20 years later, as a Navy commander, I was leading a team to stop foreign fighters from coming into Afghanistan to kill and maim Americans. I've also been a prosecutor, prosecuting habitual and violent habitual offenders, owner of a business, a partner in a business, and most recently, the leader of the Florida House as Speaker of the House. Number two, you want a governor who has delivered results, and the governor said those 2 years when I led the legislature were unmatched. We got more done in Florida than any other legislature in America. You want that. And you also want a governor who will stand up to special interests, which relates to the topic of the day. I stood up in the insurance crisis to stand up against billboard lawyers as well as insurers to make sure we focused on consumers to bring down prices. We see auto rates going down in only one state, our state, because of those reforms. And with respect to big tech specifically, in year two, I stood up and a priority of mine was to stop young children, 8-year-old boys, for example, from seeing horrible online pornography that nobody should see, and they were seeing just by clicking them over 18, as well as addictive social media platforms and protecting young children under 16 from getting on those platforms that use addiction as a business model. And so you want a governor who's going to fight and stand up to special interests for your interests, not fight alongside them because they're a donor that can help. Now, on the issue of AI, is part of my contract with Florida, our first 100 days agenda. We're going to get after it, and that will be not in the first 100 days, but in the first 10 days, because right after I get inaugurated, we're going to go into special session to address affordability, eliminate property taxes, lower insurance rates, lower electric rates, and stop, halt, ban hyperscale data centers in Florida statewide. That is part of our contract with Florida. You can see on voterenter.com. Now, why are we doing that? Well, the simple reason, and most people in the audience know, is that this is the equivalent of 700,000 or 800,000 people in electric demand put on our grid will absolutely raise your rates. Additionally, it's damaging the environment. One of the reasons why I'm so opposed to this in Florida is because states that are losing population, excess capacity of their grid, or have excess water. We are a fast growing state. We're already under stress. Our environment, our roads, our bridges, our aquifer. So to put something in place that will suck the aquifer dry is a bad idea for Floridians. We can't do it. And additionally, the environmental damage of perceptible, imperceptible noise, what they call tonal noise, will damage the environment, damage organic creatures like human beings, like livestock. We need to study the effects of that, and we will, as you say, study that to warn other states about the dangers of what is currently being offered in these hyperscale data centers. If they want to go to space like Elon Musk suggested, let them go. But when it comes to the technology itself, I also have concerns. Look, are we going to stop AI? No. Do we want to beat China? Sure, we want to beat China on everything. But the point is, for any benefits that there may be for healthcare or research and that type of thing, and AI is often wrong, whatever benefits there are, we have to guard against the risks. I think especially, not just children, but especially children, because if one of those children I mentioned on an addictive social media platform says, look, I'm depressed, I'm thinking about taking my own life, you would stop everything you're doing to not let it happen. AI will give them 5 ways to do it because it has no moral compass, no capital T truth. You have to put guardrails around it. That's why I want to pass the AI Bill of Rights that the governor put up, but I will strengthen it. Rather than an opt out for parents, I want a permanent opt in for parents. I do not believe that AI should ever replace teachers, ever, because a teacher can look at the eyes of a child and know that, yes, they've gotten a lesson, or they're confused, or they're frustrated, and address that issue in the classroom. An AI machine can never do that. And so, as we discuss this important topic, we have to make sure that humanity is in control of technology, not the other way around. And that will be a priority for me when I'm governor. Additionally, we're not going to let AI be part of the surveillance state. I'll stand in front of a moving train to stop AI from empowering flock cameras or anything else that is coming online that will damage our privacy. So with that, I want to say thanks for having me. God bless you, and I wish you a very good conference, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Thank you. So before we begin and before we start talking about infrastructure and megawatts and water and all those things, we have to remember that there is a human aspect to AI. Many of us are asking the same questions. How will it shape our children? How will it change the way they learn, they think, they create, they connect, they grow? As technology advances, what parts of the human experience should always remain uniquely human? So to begin this evening, I want to introduce you to Keegan. Keegan is going to share a personal story that reminds us why this conversation matters, not just as citizens, but as parents, neighbors, educators, and fellow human beings. This conversation about AI goes so much deeper than just the surface of the water, megastructures, and the power that steam generates. So would you mind taking a moment?
So that is where that comes from. And your second question is,
I think you answered both of those, so I have a third.
okay,
What are the potential long-term impacts on neighboring wells, agricultural springs, rivers, and the Florida aquifer situations?
well, AI data centers, they don't just consume water, they pull water out of the aquifer very forcefully. It's not like there's a trickle-in effect. So one problem could be multiple local wells could go dry. The river could be severely depleted due to the Peace River water basin. And currently, right now, we are in a phase 3 water shortage, which was issued by SWIFT. And for instance, right up the river here in Fulton County, we have the phosphate mining industry. And one company by the name of Mosaic Fertilizer Phosphate Company, they have multiple water use permits. But just to give you an example, one of their permits, they can draw, and they do, 70 million gallons every day, clean drinking and bathing water. They can go up to a maximum of 89 million gallons daily, which they have at times. And another thing that we have to worry about are sinkholes. So what happens when you start pulling so much water from the aquifer? We get a couple of things. We get a serious imbalance of the pressure, stabilization. As it keeps going lower, what is happening? We're now having saltwater intrusion. This is a very, very serious issue. AI data has a very high thirst. Just to give everybody an idea, when we do 10 to 50 prompts every day, we're using about 355 milliliter of water. When we send an email, now we're using about 850 milliliters. Now, Sam Altman has a 1/15 of a teaspoon analysis, but that was for a very smaller model, not like ChatGPT 3.
Thank you. Rachel, are there regulatory gaps in Florida water law that AI data center development is currently exploiting? I'll do.
Sure, absolutely. Well, good evening. Interestingly, so this is very timely. There were some gaps that the legislature just attempted to close, and those went into effect at the beginning of this month, on July 1st. So I think I'll go over those very briefly, but I think to put the conclusion first, we need to see that those attempts to close the gaps are actually properly enforced, both at the state and at the local level. Because you can have all the laws in the world, but if the bad guy's position is F you, catch me if you can, and the courts aren't going to back you up, then we need to make sure that we have very strong law enforcement at the executive level and that the legislature is holding people accountable in the means that it has to do so. So some of the changes that went into effect, well, let me start with where one of GAPS was. There was already a requirement that a large load customer on water, that would be, I believe it's 100,000 gallons per day. If a customer, and that would include these data centers, particularly the hyperscale data centers, if they were going to seek a water use permit for that amount, they had to go through a hearing. Interestingly enough, there were provisions in the law, and lawyers always write these things, so I'm sorry on behalf of my profession, but lawyers always write these things so that there's a carve out, right? So while it says there needs to be a hearing, there's a couple of ways in which even these 100,000 gallons of water a day customers could still go and get their application through the local board without a hearing. So that's been closed. That gap has been closed. Now it's required at all times. Another really important thing was these non-disclosure agreements that could be signed between developers and municipalities, etc., in order to, I don't know, I haven't seen one of these NDAs. I don't know what the contracts were, but ostensibly to avoid our state's very good sunshine laws. Now that's out. No more NDAs. Another thing is minimum tariffs, minimum, not maximum, minimum tariffs and service requirements. And what that means is where the developers were able to say, we get this waiver, or we're, sure, of course, we're raising our hand, we're paying our fair share of the utilities. No, now that's got to be enforced. There's a minimum level to make sure that they're paying that. And so again, though, that needs to be actually enforced. Now it's in the law, now it needs to be enforced. And finally, another point that I want to talk about, and then I know we have some follow-up. There are statewide standards, but there's also still the ultimate authority is at the local level, and that has stayed in the bill. But of course, what we really want to see is the cooperation between the state authorities and the local authorities, and that's on us. That's on the people. You've seen that with the AI data center discussion around the state, where you've had hundreds of citizens go into these meetings at the commissions and the boards, and that's what we've got to keep doing. So we make sure that the boards operate in accordance with what the people want. And if you ever see that they're not holding a hearing like they're supposed to, hold their feet to the fire. Make sure that the local officials are doing what the law says to do.
Thank you. And so our follow-up is, should Florida require additional transparency or statewide standards for projects with unusually high water consumption or energy demands?
Well, of course. As I said, I think I already sort of touched on this, and that is that while it's in the law, you have to hold them accountable. And I say this often, we often play Jenga. Y'all know that game where you pull out a little tiny wooden piece and put it on top and hope the whole thing doesn't fall over. Sometimes just to justify their own existence, legislatures, and this is all the way down to counties when they're issuing ordinances to the state level, to the federal level, just to justify their existence, they'll promulgate all kinds of laws without checking to see whether there's another law in that mosaic that is going to undercut what they just did. But then they get to go out on a publicity tour and say, we did it. Now, what I saw in these changes that took effect this month, these are some really solid changes if they are properly enforced. And so that would be the point that, again, that's on us, the people, and we can do that.
Very good, thank you. Eddie. As AI infrastructure expands across the country, how should Congress balance the need for technological growth and protecting America's natural resources?
Well, first, Rachel, you said mosaic, and I thought Tim was going to jump out of his chair there. So be careful with the words that we use. All right. So the infrastructure that expands across the country, how should Congress balance? I'm looking at the question here. The need for technological growth. Congress needs to understand, and members of Congress need to understand what actually drives this country and drives the economy. And it's the free enterprise markets that we have to let people actually do their job and be innovative. The American ingenuity is what's driven American exceptionalism and what's driven the technological advancements that the entire world is benefiting from. And right now, we've got Congress in there saying, oh, okay, this is good. Let's try to control this. Let's try to bring this into our world and into our sphere. Congress needs to get out of the way. It's that simple. And get out of the way, and beyond just getting out of the way, if there is something that they could do, they can enforce the existing laws, just like you were talking about enforcing laws. There are laws on the books of Sherman antitrust laws to break up monopolies. These are government-controlled monopolies. Big tech is a government-controlled monopoly, and you basically need to carve out lines of demarcation. So your technology goes right here, and then it stops here, and now we're creating a new market. And if you created a new market, now all of a sudden you're opening it up to every other entrepreneur in this nation to jump in there and say, okay, I can make it better. I can do it better. And they can. They absolutely can. Let me just give you an example, and I've used this before, but I'm going to say it again. Group texting is the most ridiculously painful function that we have. It's ridiculous that if you got an Android and you got an iPhone, now they can't talk to each other, and now they can't talk. Now I can't add somebody or delete somebody or work this. This is crazy. This is the simplest fix that you could possibly imagine, and it just takes interoperability standards. And that is actually Congress's job, to regulate interstate commerce. We need to actually do the job, and then it would unlock and unleash an economic boom, a la the 1980s when Ma Bell was broken up during Reagan. He unleashed an economic boom, and we're sitting on amazing all of our strength as Americans, and the ingenuity and the creativity, especially of our youth. We're just locking it up through these monopolies and saying, don't do this. You can't help, because as soon as you do, why would anybody step in and create a technology when all of a sudden this monopoly is going to step in and say, hey, we're doing it now, and we're locking you out through something called APIs. We're just going to lock you out of this API, and they can do that. They have absolute control of these markets, and it's a big problem. So that's one of the things. You also, did you ask the second question?
I did not.
Okay.
Is there a federal role in helping community? Oh, go ahead. I wanted to answer the question.
Yeah.
I can't.
Sorry to do this, but one other thing that the law in Florida, so you're talking about federal, but here in Florida that shored up is what I call the large load customer. So a lot of these data centers and developers were finding ways to split up their projects so they wouldn't fall under the definition, so that they would have to go through a hearing for water use. Now, the new law says you can't do that. You have to be very clear that the whole project comes together. So it's sort of the antitrust made me think of it, but that's exactly what they're trying to force these developers to be very honest about. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, that's good. And also, I mean, there's so much to this. So you're going to have to cut me off at some point here.
One more minute. 1 minute.
Okay. What we need to understand is what they've done with these hyperscale data centers. They have completely juiced the market and subsidized this, so that if you were to try to architect a bubble that would devastate our economy, you couldn't do it any better than what Congress has done through this legislation. DCIP, I know we're not talking about them, but that's just an example. They're going to get in the first year about a 4 to 9 billion with a B subsidy. And then afterwards, because everything's going to get expensed day one. So if you expense everything day one, this is creating a bubble so that somebody can juice up their profits and then they can cash out. And then they're not going to be able to take that deduction for the rest of the life cycle of that equipment of the next 20 years. So now you've just front loaded everything. And it's not just the hyperscale data centers and their constructions that are getting juiced with these subsidies. It's the entire supply chain to the chip manufacturer. They're all looking at this, and we see it as like, oh my goodness, there's just this gold rush that's happening right now. Everybody's trying to do everything they possibly can, and as well as the NDAs that they're pushing, which is there's so much. Next question. I'll stop.
Thank you, Eddie. Excellent job. We're going to pass it on to Julie. Julie, you have built much of your campaign around protecting Florida's wetlands, waterways, agriculture, and responsible growth. As proposals for large-scale AI data centers come before local government, what environmental standards do you believe should be met before projects of this size receive approval?
Well, it's not only important to protect our environment, but also to make sure that our communities are protected as well. We've seen incredibly concerning reports across the entire United States of America that range from crop and livestock deaths to heart murmurs in children, as well as respiratory illnesses in children in the area within the immediate area surrounding a hyperscale center. So, environmentally, what we can do to put safeguards, guardrails on data centers is to first have an environmental review that is very strict, that is independent, and that is extremely thorough. So if there is not enough water, it doesn't go in. If it wants to draw from the aquifer in an area where people are drinking from the aquifer, it doesn't go in. If it is a threat to the wildlife corridor, it doesn't go in. If it is a threat to the community whatsoever, such as the one in DeSoto that we're not talking about, that they want to put next to a school, it doesn't go in. So as far as environmental guardrails, they must be very strict. They must be very thorough. They must put Americans and Floridians first and ensure that we as a state, as a people, are thoroughly protected from any possible damaging effects. And if it is something that is going to be damaging, it just straight up doesn't go.
Very good, thank you. John, many residents feel overwhelmed trying to understand complex development proposals. What rights do citizens already have under Florida law to access information, challenge decisions, and participate in the process? And where do you think those protections could be strengthened?
So there's so much that I wanted to say about some of the questions that have already been asked, but just really quickly, I just want to make some points. Number one, we all know that actions speak louder than words, right? I think that we've all learned that. You become an adult, and that's like everyone's motto, right? You understand that actions speak much louder than words. Imagine the people that are running for office who won't say the right thing. If the person running for office won't say the right thing, the chances that they'll do the right thing afterwards is far less than someone who even will, right? So right now, what we have is people who the changes in law that have been made recently are are good, right? It's actually shows an effort to close some gaps that are surprising to me, to be frank. But the rights that we haven't changed in 250 years that we can use right now, which is number one, your right to vote, your right to speak, okay, your right to assemble. And I hate to tell you, in case you haven't noticed, we're at the stage in our country's development where those rights need to be practiced by the citizens on an everyday level. If you're looking for political leadership to make the changes that you need, it's not coming. Help is not coming. Like that movie or that meme, help is not on its way. They're just not going to. And I'll tell you why. Because they have every company that comes in, a politician come in and they say, oh, look, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Julie, I spent a few minutes speaking with Julie at the very beginning. She's extremely bright. She knows what she's talking about, right? She's going to get elected into office. And then she's going to realize that she is one of 500 or so legislators or people involved, bureaucrats also, that are not elected, but they still run the state government, that aren't on board. And then there's nothing that you can do but wait for your tenure to be over and go back to the real world. Some of them never want to leave, right? But if you don't exercise your right immediately, like right now, beginning today, then I can guarantee you that AI data center is going to be in your backyard. It's going to be. And if your whole view is not in my backyard, because that's what everybody does, right? That whole NIMBY movement about everything, that's not good enough. Because then it's going to go to the school that your grandchildren or children go to. And there's no people there. That's not in somebody's backyard. That happened in Osceola County, where I was an elected school board member. They literally had a chemical plant that was about to go next to a neighborhood. They said no, and then they moved it right next to the school. And there were no houses there that would spur the people to reject this chemical plant. So now everyone's kids have to go to a school next to a chemical plant. So in terms of the changes that what we can do, the rights, it's all complicated. The reason that it's complicated is because it's intentionally that way so that you can't do anything about it. And that's why you have to get back to the fundamentals. So, and I'll just end with this. There's a lot of, for every step in the process, there's an attorney that is outsmarting the people that we have in our governmental agencies that are trying to protect us. It's the bottom line. One of the reasons that DeSantis was so successful and has been so successful is that he's as smart as all the lawyers of the special interests. Okay. So in a real world, in a regular world, Rachel Rodriguez would be the front runner just because she's an intelligent person that understands. She can fight. She had been fighting, right? But instead, everything's a cult of personality. We get fooled as voters, and then they get elected. People get elected who don't have, I'll just say, let's say that you have a gubernatorial candidate who makes it to the governor's mansion who is getting circles run around him by the possibility of all these lobbyists, right? And every step, if you can imagine, if you went to work on Monday and from Monday at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., you had 6 people who are trying to undermine what you're doing, that's going to be an exhausting day, right? Now imagine 2,080 hours a year of that, where every day you go to work, there's people who are paid very handsomely to outsmart everything that you're doing to protect. So at this stage, we really need to go back to the basics and fight a little bit harder for the details. If you don't hold the elected people accountable by voting them out, every single one, so that incumbency does not exist any longer, then nobody's going to be motivated to pick up that fight.
Hey, John, are you saying I don't have a personality?
Okay, Nick. So you spent a lot of time interviewing lots of people. What are the biggest concerns you're hearing most right now regarding the AI data center? And what do you think local governments can do differently to build public trust?
So I am not a couth person, so if I curse, I apologize. I was a corrections officer for 20-something years in New Jersey. So I'm going to go off on how this all started first. In October, I went up to New Jersey. I was visiting my mom, and she was complaining to me about her electric bill doubling. And I was like, why is your electric bill doubling? Well, going to find out, a lot had to do with the data centers because they plugged into the infrastructure. So when I came back down to Florida, my partner Colin and me, we decided we were going to do a show and start interviewing and trying to get to the bottom of this. And we started with Fishback, and that was in January. And he was one of the first government officials to talk about data centers back then, being against it. And slowly they all fell in line except for Byron. What I can tell you is nobody wants these data centers. You guys are all here. I haven't met a single person in a community that's for data centers. It's also the flock cameras that they're putting all everywhere. You guys understand that it's a surveillance state, and it's not the government doing it. It's private entities, and they're getting NDAs so people can't find out who it is. Why does a company need an NDA? They're hiding behind these because they know they're going to get backlash from it. So, interviewing all these politicians, there's one thing that I found: the grassroots. The grassroots people are the people you guys should be voting in. They are for you people. For whatever reason, when I moved down to Florida, was the year that all of these elected officials, they were all installed. They were all installed to do this. We fought Project Tango on the East Coast, and we won for a year moratorium. Now, those moratoriums is just so the data center people can get their paperwork right to come back and get it exempt. How you guys fight this is showing up at the midterms, and like the PACs, the lobbyists, they're all in on it. The best way to fight this is get these people out of office and threaten them. And for what I do, I promise everybody here, any county commissioner that votes yes on this, I will help you dethrone them. I don't care if it's a football coach, a mom working at a school, on a school board. We will help you dethrone that. And I want them all to understand that 20 million views by myself a month, I will dethrone you. I promise you. You guys, this is your battle. This isn't anybody's battle, and it's your battle because we were all asleep for years, thinking the government was going to help us. This has all been in plan since COVID. The Project Tango, 2016 is when they started it, and they're trying to upscale it. The thing with the data centers and these hyperscale data centers is we all know how quick technology increases and how, like, this phone, right, compared to an iPhone 8 is when they applied for the Project Tango, right? You're talking 10 years later. They're going to build these hyperscale data centers, and in 5 years, they're going to scrap them because technology is going to get smaller. It's going to get less electricity. They're going to pull out of there, and you guys are going to have this big warehouse in your town that polluted land, polluted water, God knows what it's doing to the kids in Jersey because they allowed things like this to happen without doing studies. These kids are getting cancer. Animals, calves are being stillborn. This is a huge fight, and I applaud everybody for coming here, taking your time and listening. But the best way is you guys talking to your family members, to your friends, and just informing them the best you can from the knowledge you get from everybody up here, guys.
That's your game.
I just want to add, a data center might be an improvement in New Jersey compared to in Florida, but just kidding. But I think you're 100% right. You have to get out. And I'll give you an example here locally. Ben Albritton, he's your state senator. He's the president of the Senate. He's a very popular guy here. But he could stop this single-handedly across the state. He's the Senate president. So if you want to know one single person that can do something to change, the Senate president, even one senator, is a gigantic roadblock in the Florida legislature. One, the president of the Senate is far more than that. If you put enough pressure on Ben Albritton, I guarantee you that data center would have to pick up and put itself in the ocean. So if it happens, that's one single name that you can blame. And if you don't want it, that's one single name that you can call out.
I forgot what I was going to say, but you're good. You're good.
Colin, so I think that segues right to you. So you've worked really hard on making sure that citizens are informed and they have accurate information. Well, so much information is coming to us that might not be accurate, might be misleading, might be conjured. And I think that's one of the biggest arguments that a lot of people are seeing is, I feel like I'm not. Is that, people are getting misinformation. How do we know what information, where to seek this information? How do we know what's reputable, what's not reputable? How do we as citizens vet that information?
You could go on to Well, really quick, I want to thank everybody for being out here. I see veterans out here. Thank you for your service. You guys are taking maybe your first step tonight. Maybe you've been at this for a while. But when you use your voice, it gives you purpose. And I believe God put everybody here for a reason. And whether you know this technology, whether you know all the codes, whether you know all the zoning and planning, the more you get together, I've been finding experts in each different area. To go through all the zoning, to go through you can't really retain all that on your own. So one of the biggest things is there's people in this room right here that you can speak to that can get down to the bottom of things. I think that Eddie has a really good perspective on this too, as far as decentralizing, because it is monopolistic in nature. I'm getting ready to have my own AI in my home that's self-hosted. It doesn't need to be water-cooled. I think that you should learn the tools, the weapons that are being used against you, not be afraid of it. But I'm a big believer that technology is supposed to complement your life, not run your life. So I have a tech company, a marketing agency, and how I got into this actually was I was just going about my day and thought my commissioners were taking care of everything. I'm like, oh yeah, this life's awesome. And it was during the COVID times, and I found a commissioner that actually had owned a marketing agency. I'm like, hey, maybe I'll go meet him and figure out, what's going on in my community. And when I went to go to the door, they wouldn't let me in, and the security guard actually put his hand on his gun to block me access. And so it really irritated me. And I'm kind of a night owl, so I started going through all the state statutes, all through the codes. And from that point on, I went through every government building in my area and filmed every single encounter, a form of auditing. So I encourage you to do your own research. You guys are not idiots. You have a mind. And there's people in your community that are really good at helping out. So I think that that's one thing. There's a lot of information in tech. A lot of tech people like to use mystique and hide behind big terms like recursive AI. And it's kind of like the medical field almost. But it's really not, that complicated when you kind of break it down to bare bones.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Kind of rambling on it. It's a couple.
So water is extracted, power is consumed, and somewhere in the fine print of the details, it makes all of this possible. Someone's deciding who owns what, who owns the data, who owns the output, who's responsible when something goes wrong. And that's one of the areas where Rachel Rodriguez lives. Artificial intelligence doesn't create itself, it learns from us. Every AI system is trained on enormous amounts of human created content, books, photographs, artwork, music, software, the list goes on. That's raised some difficult questions that lawmakers, courts, and society are still working to answer. Who owns the data used to train these systems? What rights do creators have? How should privacy be protected? And are our laws keeping pace with technology that is evolving faster than the government can respond? Our next speaker has spent significant time examining these issues and advocating for thoughtful public policy. With AI governance, Rachel, where do you believe the greatest gaps exist today? I think you already answered a little bit of that. And who is most vulnerable, and what should Florida be doing now?
Well, how much time do we have? No. Right. Now, we talked about the gaps in the infrastructure that is hosting AI. Then there's also the question, this is Keegan's story, where are the gaps in regulating or oversight for AI-generated content, art, all of these things. And Keegan's story is clear that AI can victimize people. But what if AI can create a perpetrator? That's what happened. Melissa Sims is somebody whose story I'm starting to understand, but she's been able to find that artificial intelligence created evidence against her, and it was used by law enforcement to prosecute her. So this is a serious problem. One of the things we talked about before is that the government needs to be fully transparent as to when and how it's using artificial intelligence. I do want my government to use AI in a similar fashion to the way I do in my practice to make things more efficient and streamlined. But how do you get the safeguards on that? One thing is the Bill of Rights, the AI Bill of Rights. That hasn't been passed in Florida, even though I think we have led the way, because here in Florida, we do have civil and criminal provisions regarding what we call deepfakes. Of course, that requires additional resources. You have to actually go to court. You have to report this. You have to get a DA interested in your case. So is it really providing immediate relief where there's damage? That's another question. But I don't want to go totally into the IP part because I think that's a whole nother area. But one of the things we can do that's within constitutional rights on the Fourth Amendment and government transparency is we can require, and this could be part of the Bill of Rights, we could require that in the context of law enforcement using AI, they have to provide at each point an exact what we call chain of custody. So if a piece of evidence is being used, you have to demonstrate not just what we generally call chain of custody, but you have to show that a human was involved at each step or independently, and I should say, and independently verified that that evidence is true. So I think that's going to be very, very important. Well, we can talk about the right of publicity. One other thing I did want to say, because this is a very, very new area that Florida is, in fact, leading the way. The civil right of action, meaning that any of us in this room could bring a case if we're injured on social media. Well, it's not just social media, but any platform, online platform that fits the definition. If content is posted that's injurious, very similar to the way we have the federal law on copyright infringement, Florida has required the platforms to give to the state their or to demonstrate that they have a process by which a user or somebody who's injured can tell that platform that there is content that is injuring me. And that had to be done as of December 31st of last year. So this is fairly new stuff.
Rules without power to enforce them are just words on paper, and the country that sets the rules will lead the world for decades to come. Eddie Spear believes that country must be us, it must be America, and he has a very specific idea of what that leadership looks like. Artificial intelligence is no longer a technology of the future. It's right here, right now. Nations around the world are investing heavily in AI because they recognize the potential to shape economic competitiveness, national security, scientific innovation, and global influence. The United States is not the only country competing for leadership in this space. That raises an important question. The issue is no longer whether America will participate in the AI revolution. We know that. The question is, how will we remain competitive while protecting our economy, our security, our workforce, and the values that define us as a nation? Eddie, make the case for American preeminence in technology. How are we the front runners? And tell us, how do we have to get there while still protecting the citizens and our rights?
Oh, that was a serious question. There's a lot to that. So we need a digital Magna Carta first, as far as the protection. I'm going to talk about protecting ourselves and our digital representation, where it goes and who uses it and for what purposes. Okay. And this is not that hard. I understand technology, and I'm going to just keep bringing you guys examples to show you that we've already done this. The lawmakers are trying to make this sound like it's so incredibly complicated that we could never touch it. They don't want to touch it because they're afraid of going against the monopolies. But for example, if you've been on social media and you try to play something that has digital rights with somebody else, it immediately gets shut down. And all those rights need to be worked out. The systems are already in place to protect intellectual property, but they're just protecting it for commerce sake. They're not protecting it for individual liberty's sake. It's real simple. It needs to be applied to individual liberties. Thank you. We're on the same page on so much, and she's a lawyer, so I don't know. So that's one thing. The economic engine, I want to share and give you another example. You remember what happened in the 80s and 90s. We went from a mainframe to distributed computing, and Cullen was hitting on this a little bit. We went to the PC, and that unleashed all kinds of technical innovations. What happened there is we went from a mainframe to distributed computing. So it's not just the power of the computing, and that's what hyperscale data centers are. They're just trying to maximize the power of all the computing so that they can control that monopoly so that nobody else can get in to the game. What we need is to have those lines of demarcation and bring more people in. So it's software and it's architecture, not just the hardware. So there's three aspects for our innovative to unlock the innovation. And it's already unlocked. If Congress would just get out of the way and set up the lines of demarcation, we're already well on our way. It's not that hard. It just requires the political will, and it requires everybody else to understand, hey, this makes sense. And once everybody says, hey, this makes sense, that's what politicians they'll actually do the right thing sometimes if they're forced to. It's our job, as John was hitting on, it's our job to force them to do the right thing. I think I answered the question.
You did. Very
Okay.
good. Thank you. Keegan, what do you think the single biggest threat to our youth today is?
Probably AI. AI is a very popular platform. It's used throughout schools, and obviously, in my case, it was used against me to victimize me. I am a victim of AI deepfakes. It definitely needs to get under control. A lot of kids are using it. You can't scroll through your phone. You can't scroll through TikTok, Instagram, any social media platform without seeing something AI.
Thank you. Nick, do you think that Americans trust that AI is being developed in their best interests? And if not, what has to change before the public embraces America's AI future?
I for sure do not think it's in our best nature to have these hyperscale data centers. So if you guys haven't noticed, in the last 4 years, they've installed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of lock cameras. Home Depot, you cannot go to a Home Depot without being surveilled by flock. Like I said before, this isn't a government thing. This is a private entity that's selling these flock cameras to these companies and the townships, and the police are using. Over 25 police officers have already been fired and charges set on them for using this incorrectly. We are humans. We will use it incorrectly. I promise you. Everybody in this room is pretty much over 45. Have any of you ever seen the government do something and it benefits us? Anybody? No. Do you think that this AI, along with Flock, is going to benefit you? They are selling your data. They are keeping track of you. AI, we all have AI already, right? It's all on our phones. Like I said before, the more time goes on, the smaller, the easier, the quicker, the less technology you're going to use for AI. This is a money grab. This is a power grab to get control, like Eddie was saying. You know, you I got so much to say. I don't even know where to begin. Um, it's at the county level. The government itself, we're not going to change anything. The only rights we have are at a county level, at a state level, maybe at a government level. No, we see what's going on in this country right now and what they're doing. There's nothing going on that's benefiting us. Everybody's bills are struggling. They're struggling everywhere across this country. If they wanted AI to protect us against China, the government would build these AI data centers. But the government is not building these AI centers. They're allowing companies to build these data centers. And when they need information, they will tell the data centers, hey, these companies, we want this information, and they'll give it to the government. This is not for us. This is for them. Just make sure everybody understands that. Everybody's here because you guys are fighting data centers and they're trying to build them in your schools. They're building them in your communities. Look at the orange groves. Look at the cattle. There's nothing that they're doing is going to benefit you. When I tell you guys run for office, some of these politicians are not as smart as you think they are. I've had conversations with pretty much every politician in Southwest Florida. They're not as smart as we think they are, I promise you. Run for office, get involved, and fight. That's it.
Owen?
I just wanted to add to that real quick, the whole Home Depot, because he's been covering a lot of that. And every time we walk by him, we make sure we flick them off. But the thing is that it is
wait. You click them off.
yeah, we give them the middle finger. That's what we do. Man.
Flip.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like you turn them off.
No,
and
no, no,
twice.
no.
Oh, I got you.
So
I'm on the same page.
we looked into Sarasota County's contracts with Flock, and again, like they get the equipment, they're leasing the software essentially. So where does that data go? And one of the things is we were at covering a protest, and it was right around that time I looked up the site where you can see if you've been Flock, and I was tracked down by Flock, and they put firearm as the description. And I went to a protest, and they said that I had something black in my hand. It was a camera. They were trying to get us kicked out. But now it looks like in the records that, I'm going around toting a firearm around. So the government will, through contracts, buy that data up and can track you down. And so it is true. The big thing with Flock, it's not just Flock. Axon is trying to capture the market as well. You'll see LPVs all around. There'll be two at a time. They're the cameras that are watching. And so with Axon, I remember even with the police force, they're putting up drones in the air and flying around downtown, and it's very dystopian. So the biggest thing is with the license plate readers. Remember when they put in the new law where you couldn't obstruct your license plate, and everyone was confused. They're like, "Wait a second, isn't it already you can't obstruct the license plate?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're right. No worries." It was purely so that the AI could have no obstruction of your license plate, and it's tracking everywhere you go. There is additions to Flock software that just came out where it's called Co-Companion. So if they're tracking a suspect and your car gets picked up, and let's say it's a coworker, and so you guys are leaving work at the same time, you can actually get caught up in the surveillance of that suspect that they claim as a co-companion, and now you're being tracked as well. So that's just a big thing is who owns the data, it's being used against you.
I just want to add one more thing to that. Everybody here is a Republican, I assume, or independent, or America First. We all remember January 6th.
Yeah.
How do you think they got everybody within a week? They used that AI data software and those cameras and were able to track everybody down to the bus ride home. That's how they caught everybody, using these systems. And now they're implementing it across the country. So anytime you go to a rally They know you're there. They know who you are. They know where you live, and they may think you have a gun on you.
Okay, y'all are done.
Might be.
John. John, so follow-up question, and I'm going off script here because I think it's the biggest pushback that everyone gets because everyone keeps saying, AI is there and it should better our life and all these things, but we don't want it here. Where do they go?
So, for one, if you look at any big business, that's really the danger. I think that, as he was saying, if like even the big food companies, has that helped our health? Not at all, right? Big health, has that helped anyone live longer? No, it hasn't. Any big business, big pharma, has that made our life? No. So big data also is a danger to you in the same way it is a monopolization of a certain power in the hands of a few that are only trying to enrich themselves through the process. And at the same time, as a result, as a byproduct, it is taking away your rights. That's a Fourth Amendment violation, what they're describing. It's you're not allowed to be surveilled. I made a post the other day, just 2 days ago, that was like, if your sheriff is installing flock cameras, he's not a constitutional sheriff, or you can't be a constitutional sheriff and be installing flock cameras at the same time. And there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that were saying, "Oh, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, no, what? No, no." So here's the scenario. If you steal your neighbor's chicken and put it in the pot, okay, are they going to solve that crime? Are they going to call on Flock to come and get the cameras and bring a drone over your house to track down that chicken? No, they're not going to. If you steal a government chicken, they're going to turn on those Flock cameras. They're going to track you home, and they're going to have the print of your dentures before you even wake up the next morning. Why is that? Right? They're not helping. None of these systems are helping you. And that's one of the big problems. So to answer the question in a roundabout way is it doesn't need to be hyperscaled. It is a monopolization problem. When you take every, and if you try to buy a computer right now, the pieces of technology that go inside of that computer are very hard to find. I sell technology. It's very hard and extremely expensive. Why? Because they're grabbing it all. They're putting it in the one giant center, and that's being prioritized over your needs as an American citizen. So break them up, piece it up. If you had a business, if you were a business owner, and here's how you democratize it. If you had let's say I own a commercial property, this one, right? And I want to fill it up with 100 computers to be running an AI data center, that's money that is made locally, right? The person here who owns the commercial building would be able to do it and have a business. It's a business model, just like any other American business. When you're a mechanic, do you have to go to Ford to get your car fixed? No, you can go to any mechanic on the street, right? Now imagine you can only go to one mechanic in Central Florida, and there was 15,000 bays worth of cars that you had to get in line to do. That's what they've done with AI. And it's basically a monopolization that is extremely dangerous. They do need to break it up on multiple levels. One last thing is that the purpose of this product is no longer, and the purpose of the business models of the United States right now are no longer intended to help the American people. And that's the bottom line. If the business itself is not intended to help the lives of the American people, then we don't need it. We just don't need it. AI is here. What's worse than AI in the United States? Chinese AI being used against the United States. Okay, we have to acknowledge that. Technology shouldn't be scary for us. Okay, technology should be a place that is exciting, that we have our kids involved, our families involved to further the technology, to make it fast. They said that in 10 years, they're going to be breaking those buildings down and they're going to be empty and not used. That's 100%. If AI is a tiny decimal percentage of as good as what people think it is, then it will remove itself from the picture in a few years because there's going to be something else. That's the way technology works. So why is it that we're having everything taken away from us for the sake of a gigantic building that doesn't serve any of our family's purposes? So break it up, allow the people to compete, allow it to be a business that is helping Americans, just like a mechanic shop or anything else where we can be involved. But right now, there's corporations that are basically creating a situation where it's a pool of very few companies. And you go to the government, and then you go, and let's say Eddie gets elected to office, and I give Eddie $6 million to run his campaign, and then Eddie is going to help me, and I don't Eddie. That's not really Eddie. Eddie's a great guy. Vote for Eddie. But there's the congressman right now. There's congressmen right now who are selling away your rights so that they can preserve their lifestyle in DC. And that's what's not acceptable, and that's what needs to change. If you do that, it's not going to solve all of our problems, no. But what it will do is create an even playing field where if you remove all the incumbents and you have new people in, they're not going to be as dedicated to preserving that DC lifestyle as the people that are there now, like Lindsey Graham, who just died in office.
I have a follow-up question. Where do I get government chicken?
Don't eat those New Jersey chickens, all right?
Okay, Julie. Most Americans agree that our country should remain a global leader in technology. The challenge is deciding what responsible leadership looks like. We added Americans, we cannot innovate. We can innovate while also ensuring that our local communities, farmers, landowners, and natural resources aren't simply asked to bear the cost. How does this work? Responsible leadership without having to drain on farmers, natural resources, communities.
Well, it starts with responsible stewardship. I'm a true native of the state of Florida. My bloodline has been here for thousands and thousands of years. We've been living in Punta Gorda since before Punta Gorda existed. And and so responsible stewardship of our natural resources and our communities is really the only way forward with this. Giving power to the people is going to be exceptionally important. It should be the local governments. It should be the people who have the final say on whether or not an AI data center is going to go in wherever it is proposed to go in. But as far as protecting our ranchers and protecting our environmental resources, I'm going to touch back to the stringent environmental standards that we must have around data centers. We have videos showing the high level of toxic output, whether in air or in water, that data centers are putting out. And they're doing, it was like 55,000 tons of nasty polluted air coming out of each turbine every single day at one single data center that they're still building in Texas. We've had reports of stillborn cows. We've had reports of trouble in the birth process with cows where ranchers have lost up to a third of their heifers and a third of their herd, effectively putting them out of business. We have a strong ranching community here in DeSoto County. We have a strong citrus grove and agricultural community here in DeSoto County, and that needs to absolutely be protected. Outside of tourism, Florida is largely agricultural, and we need to ensure that we protect our lands and our resources before we go bending to the whims of wannabe AI data center overlords.
Sorry. So as new industries emerge and our state continues to grow, one question does rise above the rest. How do we embrace this innovation without losing those very things? Julie has built her campaign around conservation, responsible growth, agriculture, and strong local communities. Julie, at the end of the day, AI isn't really about computers. It's about communities. It's about whether the families who already live there benefit from those decisions being made or simply live with the consequences. As Florida grows, how do we make sure our communities come first?
We need to make sure that the people are the ones making the decisions. So if there is someone who is saying that we need to just go with the flow on AI, go ahead and check their donor records. They're probably bought out by AI. And that checks out with my own race. My opponent is completely bought out by oil, AI, big development, and there's 2 videos of her sitting in the legislative stand and promoting AI data centers, especially like the ones here in DeSoto. It needs to be the people's choice of whether these go in. There need to be a lot of strict and stringent requirements at the state level of what impacts can be found and what things need to be done as far as discoveries, research, data needs to be on the table. And then it has to come down to the local populace. You know, it can't always just be the commissioner's choice, because a lot of times what we see in the state of Florida is that people will line up 300 deep, like we all did yesterday at the DeSoto Data Center, and then they don't vote to the power of the people, they vote towards the power of their pockets. I would be a big fan of seeing data center decisions become a voted on topic by the people. Let's have the people have the power. Let's put it on the ballot.
Thank you. Tim, you've often said that we're not just borrowing Florida's natural resources, we're borrowing them from future generations. As Florida continues to grow, what responsibility do today's leaders have to ensure that growth doesn't permanently change the land and resources that define this state for generations to come?
I'm going to say two words. We'll start off with corporate captured and corporate cronyism. What I see happening here in our state, unfortunately, is our resources are being depleted. Now we've heard some really great conversation about monopolies. So let's talk about a monopoly. Just 40 miles from where we're all here right now in Hardy County, in Polk County, in Hillsborough County, in Manatee County, and in 7 years from this meeting, they want to make it DeSoto County. And over 390,000 acres of land, which over, I would say, probably 250,000 to 300,000 of those acres have been phosphate land. And how did this happen? Because we have from Tampa Bay to Charlotte Harbor, Tampa Bay, Charlotte Harbor, you have the Alafaya, Little Manatee, Myakit, and Peace River, including numerous creeks and streams that every day are polluted, are used to discharge toxic pollution. And the reason they say it's okay is because it meets the maximum concentration level criteria with FDEP. Our water level is lower than it's ever been in history on the Peace River, in the Myakka River, on the Manatee, the Little Manatee, and the Alafaya. What do these all have in common? Phosphate mining. It is a monopoly. And I want to tell you, John, I love it. I'm going to definitely contact Senator Al Britton. Yeah. And I have to share this with all of you. It does take all of us. Our grandparents fought for our freedoms for us to get 3 minutes in these commissioning chambers. Only 3 minutes. But and some of them have died. Most people wake up in the morning and they think everything's going to be just fine and they're going to take care of everything. But what we have are generational politicians. They do their time. Then they want to have their wife get elected. And guess who's waiting in the wings? The children. And what do we have at Tallahassee and all these 67 counties? Generational staff. It's a club. George Carlin said it. Right. We're not part of that club. But you know what? They're not part of our club. Our club is we the people. Okay? I keep, almost begging our elected officials to do better for all of us. I continually remind the ones that have children. I tell them, you need to be focusing on your children's children's children. We will be ashes and dust. What do we want to leave for our future and our legacy? We have to do the work to see the miracles. That's not just a saying, everybody. You have to do the work. You cannot just rely on other environmental advocates. And I have to say this right now because it's really been a pleasure to actually get to meet Eddie, to meet Bobby Williams, to get to meet John Phillips. It's an amazing thing for me to see Glenn Gibellina and Liz Arnold, people that I have fought shoulder to shoulder with, back to back, in multiple county commissioner chambers, fighting for our wetlands, fighting to preserve the land. And here these people are running in Manatee County because it's just become so corrupt, and we need quality candidates. We need people we can trust, people that are connected with our community, not disconnected.
Rachel, what kind of Florida do we want for our children and grandchildren to inherit, and what decisions need to be made today to make that happen?
Well, I think simply, and I think everybody here has said this in one way or another, but are we going to be consumed, or are we going to be productive and flourish? And that's the question on every policy, every law, what we're going to do, and our whole entire mindset. And so it's interesting, Eddie said gold rush. That's exactly the analogy that came to mind on AI data centers specifically. I agree with my colleagues here that decentralization is what's going to push forward our development. But the data centers themselves are sort of like the 1970s computers, right? Took up a whole room. I think we talked about that. So Florida should not be the hills where everybody was raping and pillaging to try to get a buck, to try to find that little gold flake. Let's make Florida the guy at the bottom of the hill selling pickaxes, and then after everybody comes back, measuring the gold. You know what I mean? And I think one way that we can do that, certainly, there's already laws that, again, very, very recent that are on the books. Let's enforce that, especially the tariff side of it. The upfront cost to the developers, if they want their bucks, make them pay for it. That's totally fine. I would say the other thing I would do is this. In all of the contracts, in the permits, there is a required trigger that if the project is not completed, in other words, no data center gets in, and is abandoned for whatever reason, the developer must deconstruct everything and restore the land exactly as it was before they got there. And they pay the cost for it. Additionally, if the technology has moved on and the data center is no longer used for that purpose, we can figure out what the right timing is. Let's say 3 years, 5 years. Same thing applies. They have to remove it and leave it the way it was.
Very good. We're going to go down to John. So oftentimes communities, and I think in our situation, this is the case for us, we feel that major developmental decisions are made before citizens ever really have a meaningful chance to weigh in. From your perspective, how can Florida strengthen transparency and public involvement? How can we have a real voice in shaping the future of our communities?
So let's identify the problem first, which is funny because I wanted to respond to some of the things that Rachel just said so much, and then you asked the question, which allows me to say what I wanted to say anyway. The number one, the government's job is to protect the American family, right? But here's what's actually happening. If you want these things to stop, then just a easy way to fix it is to ensure that they actually feel the liability of their mistakes. And right now, that's what they're preventing. They have lobbyists that are making sure that no matter what happens, no matter the mistake is, yeah, sure, we can say that according to the law, you have to put this back to the way that it was after 5 years, right? But it'll never happen. They'll declare bankruptcy, right? It's going to be a small company, and they'll declare bankruptcy, and they'll never fix it. They won't. It doesn't even happen when somebody buys a laundromat and spills a couple of laundry detergent. Much less is it going to happen with a giant data center, right? The important thing to remember is that there's a specific victim here that we haven't talked about. Okay. And that's the person who's paying. And you know who's paying for all these mistakes and these developments? The taxpayer. You guys are, right? That is 100% you're paying for it. Let me tell you how. And this is one thing that the politicians hate. When I was an elected school board member, I used to every 2 weeks I would talk about this behind the dais, and everybody would get really pissed because it was exposing the true connections that they had with the misuse of our land. And that is that you're being tricked. They are literally buying things with your tax money, okay? And then that money is used as seed money for projects like this. What happens is that they want to do a development. The people who own the land, who are going to do the development, the developers who are going to build it, they get together. They decide that we're going to put this thing on this land here. The first person you go to is to a bought and sold school board and say, hey, we're going to build 500 houses here, so we need a school, right? So then the school board gets together. They all get their contributions, and in return, they spend $20 million to buy land to build a high school, right? Your tax, that money, that $20 million that is spent, why was that so necessary? Why did they have to be the first people to buy land? So that it was the seed money to make that development. The same thing is happening with these data centers. And it's the same thing that's happening with these solar farms. This is the name of the game is not, they're not making money maybe from the data. Of course they are. It's a profitable model. The real money is in the real estate. You're basically subsidizing their purchase of hundreds of thousands of acres everywhere. A 600-acre solar farm is never going to produce enough energy. You're not going to even be able to cook the chicken that we were talking about earlier. But that 600-acre piece of land is worth a tremendous amount of money on a profits and loss statement. And that P&L is exactly why they're doing this. And it's the same with a data center. Why would you want to create something that is going to be antiquated in 10 years and be defunct? Because you're still going to own the land. They're not going to return it back to the way that it was before. They're just going to resell it for more money. It's just going to be an item on a P&L that allows them to sell their stocks at a higher price. That's a great idea. But instead of putting a lien on them, let's put tar and feather on the person who's responsible for it.
So I just want to touch up on something. You guys, I'm not sure how the insurance companies. So when we have a hurricane and the insurance companies bail and leave out of state, they just file bankruptcy. They open up in a new name, and then Florida lets them back in, even though they screwed you all over. It happens with everything. He is 100% correct.
Yeah, I wanted to touch up on something Tim Ritchie said about the good old club. Yeah, a little example is in Sarasota. I'm backing my friend for school board because she's a great qualified candidate, and a random page on Facebook kind of released some information on the other candidate that was endorsed and big money's behind, and people that everybody knows. And they released some of the court records that this candidate's apparently going through in another state. And apparently I started getting all these messages of people saying, oh, you see what this guy's saying? Her husband was accusing me of running the page and said he's going to drag me through court for years. And this guy's got a lot of money. But the thing is that the threats don't work. I'll counter if that happens. I'll own the condo downtown. No problem with me. But I kind of want to touch real quick on like what you guys can do is that the more you disperse the risk, meaning if one person's speaking out, it's really easy for them to dogpile. And we need to disperse that throughout the community. And a lot of people here, one thing you can do is do you have a cell phone in right now? You can just take that out and record them. They don't like it. And if the more you record, the more you post, the more questions you ask, the more sharing that you do, the better it is. Like we're getting ready to put out a calendar of all the events throughout all the counties because I sit down every day and I make sure I have them. We followed protests for about a year to find out where the funding was coming from. We'd show up and they'd be like, hey, well, that's calling. So you don't have to do everything. Don't put everything all on just you. When you come to the rooms like this, you meet people that become like family. Like I trust a lot of these people, like everybody on this panel. I'm an introvert by nature. I'm a techie. And after a while working in the tech industry, you kind of get soulless. You feel like, what am I actually doing? My hands are super soft, and the generation before me who was getting screwed, their hands were rough, so I can just sit in air conditioning. And the tech industry can talk down to them like they're idiots. You guys aren't stupid. They don't control your life. And I think that the biggest thing is do not get demoralized. It's a demoralization ritual that they do. You have to find a way to make it fun. I think when you laugh at the absurdity and film them while they do it. So each one of you has a skill. Each one of you is unique. You're built in the image of God. Use that and just don't get demoralized, because then that's what this moratorium is trying to do. It's a quelling feature. So for a year, they're going to make sure that you guys calm down, you stop showing up, and they're just going to work it in to where they can get it all ready to go. Like in Fort Meade, at first in Fort Meade, they said they needed like 150,000 gallons a day or whatever, and they come back and like, oh, we could do 50. It's like, well, then why'd you need 150,000? It made no sense. Everybody in the community saying no, 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 and they line vote yes, yes, yes. In a perfect world, we really don't even need to get into the reasoning of why you don't want it, the water, all the bad things. If you come out and say no, their job is to say no. And if they don't, get rid of them. Yes.
Here's the one thing that politicians really hate is to be uncomfortable. Okay. It's the one thing they absolutely hate, and that is your job. I know that sometimes they're your friends. Al Britton might be your friend. You're a rancher out here. You know him. He's your friend. But the bottom line is Jesus himself said, I didn't come here to make peace. I came here to bring what? Disagreement, right? So disagree harshly, save your country. Your friendship is not worth sacrificing your children's future. Okay. If they're in office right now, chances are there's a reason for it, and it has nothing to do with how great they are, what a wonderful person they are. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But the fact is there's lobbyists who run the state, and that's your problem. And if these guys are not getting rid of them, if they're not telling you the truth right now, if they're not saying that, if they're not open about it, then they're on the wrong side. And then you need to maybe look at your relationships and make some decisions based on that.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, just for 2 seconds. So yeah, we're the chatty ones. So I'm a big believer in the people. And in my time on the board of the Wild Florida Alliance, we've seen power to the people being just the hugest, the biggest mover in the state of Florida. With education and public involvement, we have seen mines, we have seen developments, we have seen all sorts of things that would have been bad for the state of Florida be put to a halt, developers trying to rezone agricultural land, etc. So the power of the people is definitely not something to be underestimated in any way whatsoever. Hell, it is the reason that I am sitting here right now. My campaign is entirely funded and supported by the people. I wouldn't be this far along without the people of District 76 behind me, and I'm so thankful to them and to God for that. Now, since we have a gubernatorial, a congressional, and a legislative candidate sitting here, there is one thing about data centers that really bothers me that hasn't been talked about yet, and it is phosphate mines. We have an immense amount of phosphate mines here in this state, way more than is actually needed to provide the United States with the phosphate that we need for defense. And I don't know if you guys know what phosphate is used for. Phosphate is used for computer chips, gunpowder, and nuclear weapons production. And the state of Florida makes over 90% of the phosphate in the entire United States. We sell over 2.5 times as much phosphate to China as any other country in the entire world, over 6.8 times what we actually use here in the United States, at a discount, no less. We need to ban the sale of phosphate to our enemies. Why are we supplying them with the thing that they need to destroy us? It makes absolutely no sense.
You go.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to wrap up down there before we get to our audience Q&A. So artificial intelligence.
Don't take away my gunpowder.
Well, you're not in China, so you're good. Artificial intelligence isn't just changing how information is created, it's changing how information is shared, consumed, and trusted. Every day we are flooded with news articles, podcasts, social media posts, videos, AI generated images, and opinions. Some are factual, some are misleading, some are intentionally deceptive. The challenge for all of us is learning how to separate fact from fiction. In an age where anyone can publish information and artificial intelligence can generate content in seconds, media literacy, critical thinking, and credible sources have never been more important. Our next two panelists, Nick Salanitro, and Colin Andrew. You both spent years interviewing candidates, public officials, subject matters. For both of you, what responsibility do independent media, podcasters, and citizen journalists have in helping communities stay informed while avoiding misinformation?
So a lot of people that do social media do it to become famous. My object of this wasn't. My object of this was to make a better environment and a better living conditions for my kids. Everybody here, I assume, has kids and or grandkids. What we do now affects their future. Okay. At no time in history has an older person been smarter than a younger person in technology. It is what it is, right? Your kids, they grow up around it. A lot of people here got it towards their 40s, right? I got it in my late teens, so I was able to adapt to it quickly. News media, they're all liars. Everything on TV, I don't care if it's Fox, CNN, ABC, NBC, they all have an agenda. Your local people like Cullen, like me, right? The people here that are boots on the ground, that are paying attention. There's a ton of us out there. You know, the information just that I get across interviewing candidates like Eddie Spears, right? I went up to Eddie's school. He's got a beautiful school. We sat down, we did an interview. He showed me all about the school, told me all about it because he's trying to make a difference, right? She's trying to make a difference. Everybody up here is trying to make a difference. Stop believing the mainstream media. They do not care about you. They are only pushing agendas. Everybody's in everybody's pockets. It's just the way things are. It's the way the world is. AI, what we have now, just in the last 2 years, just wait. Our jobs are going to disappear. Your kids' jobs are going to disappear. It, you have to prepare. Bobby Williams says something. He says the fruits of your labor. Yeah, right. Judge on your fruit of your labor. Your kids, your grandkids' lives will be judged on what you guys do as a community to stop things like this from happening. They're going to turn this place into a concrete jungle if we let them do it. Speak up. Pay attention, be a voice. Colin was saying about sharing and posting. You know, we're going to get into a situation I see in the next 2 to 3 years where you think you're watching an interview like with me and Eddie, and it's just AI generated information. So you guys got to get your trusted news sources now. Start watching podcasts, start getting local involved. Stop believing everything. Like I do social media on every platform. Me just speaking the truth, I get banned. I get throttled. I'm sure everybody up here has been shadow banned for speaking the truth. Everybody here can start their own channel, can pick up their phone, start speaking the truth. Create an account on Instagram. Most of you guys have Facebook. Get on there and start talking about what they're doing in your town, waking your friends up, sharing those videos. When you see videos of us talking about AI data centers over here, share those videos. That's the best way you can help all of us and help you guys is sharing. If everybody here shares the video and your views get 100, 150 people, different people, that video is going to get over 4,000 views, and then that'll keep that cycling. People will get information. This is a fight for our freedom, guys. 100%.
It's totally true. And Elon Musk was just talking the other day. The obvious outcome is UBI, so universal basic income. I mean, he's going to say that these robots are already producing enough that humans are just going to sit around and do what exactly. And I look at my kids and I'm like, I grew up. I used to like beat palm trees with a stick and run around through the woods like Lord of the Rings. And so you don't really see kids doing that anymore, and it's sad. The I want to touch really quick with social media. I worked with a group called Guard Against Trafficking, and I'm actually going to put I'm in touch with them. And they work on finding loopholes in bills. They actually were working on CSAM material when I was with them, and in trying to fix the issues that she experienced. And one of the things that we were able to do at the founding of the nonprofit was they were testifying in front of Congress on the border issues and things like that. And because of social media, we were able to get it all the way up to President Trump, where he shared it. And that was a really cool accomplishment. And again, we're no different than you. We're not trying to be social media stars. We're trying to get information out. And the more information you can get out to people. And when you look at interviews, these people prep, they have scripts, they deceptively edit them. It's all garbage. When you just talk to your neighbor, ask them what are the issues that you're experiencing in your community, and film it. You guys can do it. And if anybody's interested, I'm sure we could come down here and we could do like a whole course on it, on how to get you set up, teach you how to use Facebook. And that's the thing is again, I'm kind of like introvert, so I don't really like being on videos. So I just film other people. Kind of creepy, but you have to get used to doing it. You'll find things that are insane. Like in Northport, I was filming a meeting on a potential moratorium, and they were trying to figure out if they were going to make it retroactive because there was already talk of an application being submitted. And I started filming because the city manager and attorney were like whispering to each other, and I caught the city manager whispering over to the city attorney that the application just went through. They were watching that meeting, and they were trying to make sure that it wasn't retroactive. And yeah, it was pretty shady. The city managers are always the ones to look out for. Really quick with Fort Meade, Watchdogs of Fort Meade, watch them. They are recalling their board or their commission. There's a lot going on with that. I went up there and they are just go-getters with it. They touch base with, there's a group called Recall Florida. Recall Florida is a group of, retired military veterans. My guy is Chance John Meyer. I don't know if you know of him, but he has put a lot of effort into making it to where if your commissioners aren't doing what they're supposed to, you can recall them. You can't do it everywhere throughout Florida. I'm sure Rachel would, have more info on that. But in Fort Meade, they got more than enough recall petitions, sealed it in the box, followed the procedures, turned it into City Hall, and somehow that box was opened in City Hall before it was sent over where it was supposed to go. And there was more petitions inside than what they had originally submitted. So it looked like either they're trying to dilute it. I don't know. The city officials were driving through filming these people while they were trying to get recall petitions. When I was there, we were sitting on the edge of a memorial because the guy has like dystonia, his back was hurting, and we had to sit down and we were talking. Sheriff's deputy came over and said that, you have to have a permit. And while we were talking, the city manager called the head guy of Watchdogs of Fort Meade. He was like, hey, is everything okay? And so they start messing with you. And that's why you have to stick together. You have to form a family in your community. That's what it's all about. And in a way, that's kind of what we're all talking about, is that we're human beings. We're not robots. Technology should complement your life, not run it. But film everything. Talk to your neighbors. Film it. Have a chat. That's all you got to do.
So I just want to add, I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Project Tango. That was the data center they were trying to build to a school in West Palm Beach. Ben Brown and Rachel reached out to me and Colton. They came on the show. It helped their movement drastically by just coming on the show. They got hundreds of thousands of views. The town poured out. They had to open up 2 separate rooms to fill because there were so many people. And so I walk into the Bean Council. I got there super early, and I love destruction. I love fucking people over, I promise you. So I sat in the back row behind all of the lawyers, and I watched them text. I watched Maria Marino, something like that. It's one of those two. I watched her pick her phone up. She was a council member, and she's over there texting, and then I watched the lawyer 30 seconds later, pull his phone out, shoot a text. 10 seconds later, she picks her phone up, starts, and I go, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, why is the county commissioner texting the lawyers of Project Tango during their hearing? So what I do, I took out my camera and I literally sat behind all these lawyers because they all think they're fucking smarter than everybody. And I took pictures of their cell phones, their laptops for 10 straight hours. And I caught them all. Then I went up to the podium and blasted them. I had a whole speech written out. I didn't even use the speech. I blasted them how corrupt they were. One commissioner, Maria Morano, voted yes to Project Tango. The rest 4, I scared the shit out of them. They all voted no. And that was just me. It's a picture. So when Colin says things like that, do it. Pull your phone out. Get these guys on camera. Ask them questions. Make them uncomfortable. Post the video. It doesn't matter. Stop worrying about what people think of you because it doesn't matter. We're at a stage right now in this country that we have to stand up and fight, because if we don't stand up and fight for this, our kids aren't going to have anything. It's going to be China and America.
Okay, now we are going to go to the QA section with the audience, and I do have a question that was submitted. So Rachel, this one's going to be for you. Can you explain to everyone briefly the Burke-Harris Act and then what laws can combat that?
You're gonna make me go into my notes.
That's okay. You have notes. That's impressive.
Let's see. Wait, which one?
The Burke-Harris Act.
I was prepared for other ones.
Yeah, we didn't grant this law. Yeah, let's show.
So if you'll give me a second, I'm just gonna.
John, do you want to start the discussion? Okay.
I'd like to just add one thing into what Nick said. Nick, you are 100% correct. I'm looking forward to us getting to some meetings because I want all of you to know. If you go in there, I've learned sometimes I can go in there and talk nice and monotone and civil like this, but I know it's very different when I come in there. The first thing I say is, I'm Tim Ritchie, the Citizen Water Czar, March Against Mosaic. They sit back. And then I just go into it because you need to really get them. And I mean get them. Get their attention. Get it to where they're scared. Why are they scared? Because they're voting for the wrong reasons. And who are they voting for? You got it, for their bank account.
Well, Rachel's working on that. Anybody have any questions?
No question.
Tim, Sam, and I were at the Charlotte County meeting the other day from 9 o'clock to 5:30 p.m. And after that, we ran to DeSoto County meeting. And they both had the same answer at the end. They're afraid of getting sued. Okay? That disturbed me. Well, what happens if everybody gets together with a class action? They're not afraid of us?
No, they're not.
That's sickening. Really sickening.
Until you get a lawyer.
Okay.
And then at the DeSoto meeting, many intellectual people, specialists in their field, engineers, and they asked this one woman, I believe was, one of the commissioners asked her, where did you get your information from?
A stupid question. AI. Come on. Well, exactly.
So real quick, as far as the county commissioners and what they do, they want to defer and look at the lawyers for their excuses. It's just an excuse that we need better county commissioners and better lawyers. And if we can't, then get other county commissioners that are going to fire the county administrator and get the lawyers that will stand up and fight for us.
So I have one quick question about whoever it was that was interested in the property law. Can you tell me specifically what the connection was? Because I can riff on the law, but I'd like to know what your concern was.
The Burke-Harris Act.
The Burke-Harris Act is used as a defense from business, like with DCIP getting their foot in the door with the 34 acres. They will use the Burke-Harris Act to leverage the county commissioners into letting them have the next 100 acres. And
Got
then
you.
once they get the 100 acres, they're like, we've invested $8 million in this. You can't shut us down now. We need that extra 100 to be able to make it worth the 8 million that we've already invested. And then once they get that 100, they're like, you can't shut us down now. Now we've spent 17 billion. We need this other 836 acres. There's got to be some defense
Right.
that our county commissioners can use against the Burt Harris Act because it's ruining us. Mosaic has used it as leverage, and now DCIP will be using it a year from now, I believe.
Thank you for that clarification. And I think eminent domain is one of the most abused powers of the state, and this to me is akin to that. The other is the sovereign immunity or qualified immunity in court, where if it's a government entity or if they're operating in the course of their duties, they somehow can't be wrong. All of these things are abuses, and at the time that these things were put in place, they made sense if you have reasonable people who aren't completely greedy, who have moral character and understand that they serve the people. And I'm sad to say, that's just not what I'm seeing across all the branches of government. So I think one thing is we need to be using that act on behalf of the residents who are losing the value of their property because of these things. I think also there could be some legislative amendment to that to put boundary lines on it. For example, one of the things that's going on in what you're talking about is a bait and switch. As the permitting goes in, Project Tango was 2016, I think?
Yeah, it's current 2016.
Or 10 years ago.
2016, they were building a data center.
Right. And that wasn't even really a thing. So it's a bait and switch in my mind. We're doing a permit for one thing 10 years ago, and then, it didn't work, and we're moving along, and until all of a sudden it's an AI data center. And so all of these things have to do with holding people accountable to what it is that's actually being presented to the people. Okay, that's part of transparency. It's part of accountability. And if that happens, then they won't be able to use these acts as shields. Also, you just need to have tougher, tougher commissions with testicular fortitude.
Can I play?
Yeah, let's play the video with Mr. Edgar.
I watched 100 people go up to this podium and talk. I watched over 100 people go up to this podium and talk, and half the people were scared. I watched them shaking. They're nervous about talking to these people because they think they're powerful. This was the last one. The place erupted. People got kicked out after this. They made it first. My name is Nick Salanicho. The Nick Colton Show. I'm from Florida. 3 months ago, Ben, Brian, and Rachel came out. They wanted to come on our show. We are so intrigued by Project Tango. We drove 3 hours. I speak against data centers. I've been here. I watched everybody's bills up. I was sitting in the back for all you gentlemen and I'm like, by the amount of corruption that's going on in the system, right? Mr. White, running for mayor, right? You're running for re-election. You are actively texting the lawyer on his phone. You are actively texting the lawyer. And I had pictures of your text messages.
Sir, please, you can only address the board.
Okay, I'll address the board. There's a lot of corruption. We'll spend the next 6 months making sure none of you guys get re-elected. I promise you. 20 million people tomorrow. I am an election guy. I promise you, I will back you. You are people that voted you in. Do not want this. They made it perfectly clear. You should recuse yourself. I promise you, this will not end here. I promise you guys. The people of this town, the people of this county, do not want this data center. 2016, iPhone 8. This one is not an iPhone 8. That's much technology change. And it's not built for an AI data center. So after this, I actually went out. We've been going after Maria for all this. Like, we built websites, we built a lot of proof against her. We are going to be going after her.
I've got a couple of simple things I just want to say to you. I'm older than probably most of you here. I'm 81, working on 82. Was at the doctor, they said my heart was good. It was my wallet was weak. You know, that MD stands for mucho dinero behind their name. Most people are not dumb. They're just uninformed. And I'm an old commissioner from the other century. I've been around a while. I've been in Phillip County politics 50 years. I kind of prefer pulling the nail out of the board rather than working on a punctured lip. Those of you running for office need to do absolutely 3 things for us. Now, we're a non-charter county. There's 2 kinds of charter. There's 2 kinds of counties that part of charter and non-county. We're a non-charter county. We can't make up a lot of our old rules. We're under Chapter 125. You need to pass a law that says term limits. We've got term limits on the governor, legislature, needs to be on every local office. I'm talking about the janitor as well. These people get in the trough and you can't get them out. You've got to make room for new people in the trough. Term limits.
To support just defending DeSoto now and in the future for those legal things. So thank you, Mr. Ed, for stepping up. Julie.
Mr. Johnson, I've had conversations with you before. Opa.
Didn't break.
I've had conversations with you before via email about term limits and the such and such of what was just spoken. And I couldn't agree more with you, sir. And bouncing back between you and the fellow behind you's question, something that we definitely need here in the state of Florida are 2 pieces of legislation. One is the Good Neighbor Act, and this is to curb the Burnt Harris law. So that way people can't just go ahead and put a data center next to a school. They have to be a good neighbor first. And there's a lot more that I could get into in that in a minute, but Joe here wants to speak real quick. As along with the Good Neighbor Act, we also need a Clarity in Government Act. And that bounces right back to what you were saying. Every communication that a government official or a member of staff or even the janitor has with a special interest group, an applicant, or someone looking to change something in the city, county, state, etc., needs to be fully disclosed 24 hours at minimum before the next meeting. Any further discussion after that 24-hour window that hasn't been disclosed, such as communications the day of, needs to be disclosed immediately, and there needs to be swift and harsh and super enforceable penalties behind this.
Thank you. For enforcement, I like having sort of an ancient martial arts guy come out with a big old stick and just smack people in the middle of it. I think that would work. And it'd be very dramatic and entertaining at the same time.
The lawyer from Project Tango with the group we were saying, when I told him what was going on, he literally walked away from me. He wanted nothing to do with it. And I'm like, you're the lawyer for the county. Like, it is. And I got it on camera, but you know.
You know what would be great is if we dedicated
Well, talking about record, one of the biggest things that you can do that you don't even have to like leave your own house is submit public records. I do it nonstop. I request public records on who's requesting public records, get all of them, and learn the laws on it too. Like with Fort Meade right now, I've been waiting about 4 months for full records, and we're getting ready to sue them on that. They'll wait for a demand letter, it goes in the ringer, and then they'll finally give it to you. But one good example of just doing public records is my mother is really involved in animal welfare, and we work a lot in Georgia because it's really bad up there. It's kind of crazy. And she was doing public records on a shelter, and she does it like religiously. And she actually is proactive in trying to help. It's not just attack. That's a big thing too, is you want to be a part of the solution. She found out that they took one of their retired police dogs. It's a canine unit that was trained, an animal that put service in for the community. They didn't even put anesthesia on that dog. They killed the dog and then threw the dog out in a dumpster in a trash bag. And when she found that out, there was a big to do about it. They tried to make that right, but that would happen without you even knowing. It's got to the point up there where the city's actually hired a third party law firm to vet every public record that she submits. And so the power of public record is so huge. If you need to learn how to do that, get in touch with us. It is so huge. Anytime they're writing notes up when they're talking commissioners, take a picture that they're writing the notes, request public records for that notes. It makes them remember that you're in charge. Everything belongs to you, including that paperclip. Every government building we all own is not theirs. It's, to use public records. That's a huge thing.
So in Charlotte County, you have Chris Constance, who is he is the county commissioner. He was also a plastic surgeon. He decided he was going to use his township computer and load all the pictures of all the women naked on his computer. So the county, because he's in their pockets, he's all in with them. They did nothing about it. He got away with it. He's actually running against John Fleming. Okay, and vote for Fleming if you guys can. But Chris Constance, yeah, I know. But some people might be here, but John Fleming. But that has opened up a can of worms for the county, because when we get those records, because now it is public records, every one of those people can sue the county.
Will you get them in Congress?
Just so there's no formal way to do a public records request. They are statutorily barred from creating obstacles. So you can simply send an email to any person and they have to forward it and they have to submit a reply to you. So it doesn't have to go some fancy. You can send an email to any of the county commissioners. And what I was going to say earlier is to try to find other people that can join your lawsuit, because that makes it a better situation for you. And I'm sure that the Army guys, Civil War, or Afghanistan won't hold it against you in recall.
One of the issues. What?
Take the mic away from him.
Well, so if I may.
They get paid to take that lawsuit.
Who gets paid to take lawsuits? Their attorneys?
The city attorney, there's a provision for attorney's fees.
Yeah, you have to get through it and then you have to get paid and it's way out, which brings me to one of my points. It's expensive. not because it should be, but because, well, what was it Garland said? There's a big club and we're not in it. My recommendation would be one thing we need to remember. All that's been said tonight makes perfect sense. But also, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So do keep that in mind every time you're interacting with public servants, because depending on where they are, they may not really know how bad they're acting. So I try to follow the Lord's example. Remember to die first to self and also for others and for your neighbor. And that also goes for those who are screwing you over and may not even realize it. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. So make sure that when you're in the process of this, you're pursuing justice and truth and maintaining your own moral character. The other thing is money should be collected by the people to I call it calling the bluff of the public records people, because what they'll do also is say, oh, it's just incredibly expensive for us to get this to you. And it's going to take, I don't know how long. Remember, what was that lawsuit? Pfizer said we can't get all these records on the vaccines because I don't know, but it'll take 75 years. Okay, so this is the kind of stuff that that people do for public records. So just because it's in the law, like I said, remember, bad guys say F you first and then say catch me if you can. So what you have to do is you have to figure out a couple steps ahead what bluffs you're going to have to call. And one of them is the cost, and the other is the time. You can even come up with creative things like, oh, me and my buddies are going to come down and help you with that. You know, just come up with ways to call the bluff. And if you can get a pool of money together, it doesn't matter if they say it's going to be $50,000. Okay, and watch how quick they get it to you for less than $50,000. So these are just some tips. But absolutely just be relentless, but you will get tagged if you're the same person that continuously asks for records. So another little tip might be to have a little pool of your friends and you just keep, going between them and open new emails and do all sorts of fun things like that. Okay. You can even send in letters certified, all sorts of different ways, but make them respond.
Very good, thank you. So Rachel, can you dive into vested rights? Our county is claiming vested rights for the 2 pending PUD applications for the 872 acres, and therefore they wouldn't include them in the moratorium. Do you know the situation?
I'm not that familiar, but I have a sense of what vested rights. Go ahead.
Well, we've approved 38 acres. Right, 34 acres, and there are several parcels that are around there as well. They've already put 2 more applications in there to allow the rezones, and so our planning commission asked them to consider a 2-year moratorium and to include the 2 applications that were already in it. They said that they were not going to do that or could not do that. So they only approved a 1-year moratorium, but the 2 applications that are already in.
So they couldn't go retro.
Sure. But and I apologize because I'm coming up from Palm Beach, so I may not know all of the things going on the projects here. Has ground been broken? Where does the project stand? Is this still so they're claiming vested rights in something on permits, right?
They're based on S3484.
Right. So you hear where I'm going with that.
They're not, excuse me, it's not a vested rights issue. They're claiming they had the application in before the law came.
Oh,
that's an ex post facto. That's
yeah,
a
that's right.
constitutional
That's what it
thing.
is.
They're not going to win it. So.
So they're just making up legally sounding words and hoping everybody gets scared and walks away. Until ground is broken and parts of the contract as they stand have been committed and so you get where I'm going with this. Just say no, I disagree, and keep pushing, because that's just I've actually seen lawyers. Let's see, what was the most interesting one that happened the other day? I was in a hearing, an evidentiary hearing. This is on a interesting, it's consumer protection. So this is debt collectors. There's like 4 big ones in this country. And the long-term lawyer for one of the big 4 debt collectors, third-party debt collectors, just says outright in the middle of an evidentiary hearing that the law required this of her client. By the way, it didn't. It was a bald-faced lie regarding the law, but she had to come up with something right then at that moment to try to steer the arbitrator in a different way. That's what bad guys do all the time. If they're already demonstrating to you a certain moral character and you've already caught them lying, they're going to continue lying. So just say, no, where do you find that? Where's the source and authority for that? And make them tell you what it is. They probably won't be able to.
Okay, very good. Next question. Can county commissioners reside in another county and keep their commissioner seat? Some of our commissioners reside in DeSoto and some in Charlotte counties. You're told. I'm not.
So this has been litigated at various levels of. So I've consulted. I haven't taken these cases. I've consulted on cases over the last 4 years regarding residency issues, including the one that was determined on the gubernatorial race on Monday. I was actually consulted and begged to be the person who would take that case, and I said no, precisely for the fact that. Even when the courts get it right, as they did a few years ago in, John would know this, I think, in one of the cases, was that Manatee? I think it was. Was it? Anyways, it was I believe it was a House seat. But anyways, the court got it right. And then the legislature comes in and is like, no, we don't like that. And so they switched it. So just recently a law went in that fiddled with residency and eligibility requirements for public officials. So I think the short answer is no, they can't. But it's another catch me if you can problem, and the courts are not enforcing it. The courts tend to look at these things in two ways. One, as a political issue, and we don't want to touch it because it's political and we might get in trouble or whatever the case may be. The other has been kind of built up, which is residency is wherever you feel like it is, including an abandoned house that's not even habitable. But if you say that's your residence, then it is. I mean, that was the case 4 years ago. This brings me to one point, and that is we're talking about a lot of officials that are in the executive positions at local and state levels, and also legislative positions the executive and the legislative is sort of tied at the local level, but at the state. Judicial branch, guys. Judicial branch. These are public officers too. In the state of Florida, they are elected. Pay close attention to your judicial races. There are people who have done incredible work in the community who have dug into the backgrounds of judges because they're nonpartisan races. But unfortunately, all of us are people. So even those who are running for judgeships, they're people. They're going to have their opinion, their worldview. And what you need to do when you're researching anyone, including those of us here running for office, is do your best to find out what the background is and where they have desired and voluntarily associated. And that's going to give you some indication of their worldview and what they think. And I swear to you, that is going to affect how what we call jurisprudence, how they determine issues under the law. And you can ask these questions. They'll show up to places because they're running for office. They'll show up to places. And I think one thing we also need to do, I know I'm riffing on the judiciary, but I'm one of the only candidates doing that because I've seen how bad it is. All of our civil rights over the last 5 years were just decimated since 2020 and 2021 across the country. But they'll show up to local places. One of the things I think DeSantis has started to do, and I think we need far more of it, is impeachment of judges. We need to be careful, right? I don't want to overstep. But we've seen some really in my county and in Miami-Dade, I caught 2 judges denying my client, who's James O'Keefe, a temporary protective order without any hearing. That is directly against the statute. You have to have a hearing in order to determine then whether or not the basis for the protective order was legitimate. But it's a shall have a hearing. It's not a maybe in your discretion have a hearing. And they in both counties decided he didn't deserve it. As a result, a month later, the person that he wanted protection from, who had said, I want to take your heart out and eat it, etc., very nice guy, got a protective order against James in Miami. And then James had all of his guns taken away. So I would say these, they're my top 5 right now for judges that I would put sort of on the impeachment block.
We have a commissioner in Charlotte County right now. His name is Commissioner Stephen R. Deutsch, and he is up for re-election. But the lady who is running against Commissioner Deutsch lives 9 houses down the street from me. She has a beautiful $1.8 million home, and it's a miracle. Her husband just retired this last year, and they just recently bought a house in Riverwood for $350,000 from a realtor who is a representative by the name of Danny Nix. And guess what? I take my little dog Luna for a walk. Who do I see at the house every day? Who do I see illegally watering their lawn on Saturday while we're in a water shortage? But yet, Kim Almondtree, who sits on the school board and was there for one of 7 votes, she's getting to run against Commissioner Deutsch. And who's backing her? The Republican Party of Florida. And who's their leader? Evan Powers. And I just have to tell you, I have to say this again. Getting to meet Rachel, getting to meet Eddie, guys, like Nick said, Colin, I speak to a lot of politicians. And I really have to tell you, hands down, you guys deserve to serve the people. It's so refreshing to talk to people that are actually connected with the citizens, not disconnected, totally involved, want to make our communities better, want to make our state better. And here we have a lady who packed up and is running for a district that she doesn't live in, that she didn't raise her kids in, and that her voting address is still the one down the street from me.
We have something like that going on in Sarasota, and this guy like really doesn't like me. His name is Jim De Niro, and apparently there's actually a complaint filed on this. So the county has submitted a complaint because he apparently sold his home and moved in with his mom into the district that he's running in. So he didn't live in the district. So apparently he's living with his mom, but he was still homesteading. So we're contesting to see, well, not me, I don't want to be involved in that. They are trying to see, but think about that. Who would sell their home and move in with their mom to run for a district? That doesn't even, what are you getting in return? And so this guy really doesn't like me. We film all the time. I want to touch on the James O'Keefe thing. James O'Keefe actually has a really cool academy that you can take. We were friends with a high level donor for James O'Keefe, and we actually got to talk to him a couple of times. Got one of his cameras. If you film, send stuff to him too. We're trying to do that's pretty much like what we're working on. Send it to everybody, and everybody is a journalist. It is like your given right. You don't need fresh credentials. Just get out there and record. But yeah, the whole thing with living in a different district, it's like, why wouldn't you just wait until that seat in your district is available? Who sells their home, moves in with their mom? What are you getting in return? It's crazy to me.
Real quick, if you guys actually have a story and you have a video that you want to talk about, if you send it to me in Colton, I will publish it for you. It will get views, I promise you. Spend this time during the moratorium to dethrone these mother effers.
So I just want to say thank you to everyone here for coming out tonight. It is so wonderful to see all of you here, especially some that are familiar faces from the DeSoto County Commission meetings. And thank you so much for your time. Now, please remember that all of the people that are up here that are candidates are grassroots candidates. And in grassroots campaigns, every dollar does count because we're not answering to special interests or anything like that. We're answering to the people. As your representative, each and every single one of you is my boss, not the other way around. And I intend to always have an open door so that way we can talk and every single person can have my cell phone number so that way the needs of District 76 are met in full and duly represented in a real way that actually represents us for once. Thank you.
Any more?
I know that we have to get out of it. So thank you very much for letting me be here and for learning so much from each and every one of you. As Tim Rich said, God bless each and every one of you. For myself personally, I like to read a lot. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. And I really respect everything that he says. So if you have a question, and if you can't answer it, then I understand. But I have been arguing as a citizen what I understand. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to embarrass myself in front of all these people because I want some clarity. So we've been talking about the Burke-Harris Act, and we've been talking about vested rights. It is my understanding, first of all, that each of the counties have the ability to use SB 484 in order to be able to write into their LDL plan that what for high energy, high density data centers, that they could just simply use SB 484 and write that into their charter, and then we wouldn't be having this discussion. It's my understanding. Am I wrong?
Well, to the extent 484 is very new, it would take probably a secondary action. I can't say sitting here right now that you're wrong. I mean, lawyers always say this, it depends. No, I'd like to look into it. But generally speaking, these provisions that are new and trying to close gaps in 484, the local governments are supposed to comply with that law. So to the extent they see that writing that into the charter or otherwise in their ordinances is going to effectuate the law, I don't see any prohibition to that. I think that would be very efficient. I think what we've talked about tonight is maybe the pushback from commissions to want to do that. But if the people push for it, I think they should.
Well, my real issue is that a lot of times that the commissioners are being blamed for not doing the job. And in my advocacy, what I'm realizing is that it's coming from behind the scenes. So there's a lot of arguments going on right now about the Live Local Act as well. And that Live Local Act also attaches to SB 484, and people don't understand because it starts being complicated at that point. And hold on, what we're finding out is that the city managers and the county managers are the ones that's running the operation and running the show. And by the time that we get to the county commissioner meetings to raise our voice, it is already too late. And that we're being slapped down, we're not being listened to. It's not America first. We're being treated. I will. Pardon me.
I appreciate the passion. Also, thank you for being so active and fighting for this. What you're doing and what many people in this room, I'm sure, are doing is exactly what we should be doing. So I want to commend you. I don't think you're wrong. I think people are playing. Again, I said this earlier. It's the game of Jenga. Even if the law is there, we try to plug the hole, or we stick this over here. So one of the things, for example, that I want to do as governor is review all of these laws. It's going to take a while, but looking at, especially starting in the priorities and seeing what 485, that's new. So I got to look at 485 and what it's affecting. And then I want to say, is this all making sense? When I was studying the criminal and civil penalties for injury from AI, like deep fakes, I realized I'm a lawyer and I couldn't fully understand what the statute was saying. And it looked internally inconsistent. These are the kind of things. So that's a little beyond your question, but I would say is you've got to have legislative officers and also an executive that's willing to sit down and look at this, streamline the law, and bring a package to the legislature and say, these things are contradictory and it's consuming the people. It has to stop.
Reality that these guys will always play off of each other, right? They know that there's 5 votes, for example. And so if it's in District 1, then District 1 might vote no, and District 2 through 5 vote yes, right? To save his skin. But they're all in on it. You have to count the vote, look at the vote result. It gives you the answer. It's not super sophisticated. Of course, I have 100 people in here that want to tell me no, so I'm the vote no. But if 4 commissioners vote yes, and that's the one no vote, he's full of it. They're all in on it. They're just trying to save their own skins. And there's no good guy. The commission is not a good guy. The state legislators are not a good guy. they talk a lot, and the sunshine law does not apply from commissioner to legislator. It only applies amongst the commissioners that are on a dais together. So it's
So we can change in that regard.
that would be a great idea. First of all, extend the sunshine law to the legislators as well. But also amongst politicians, because a lot of these deals are made between commissions, school boards, state legislators, etc. It's very large.
What they'll do is they'll use the privilege that you have between a lawyer and client
To evade sunshine laws. Now, I'm a lawyer, so I don't say that lightly. That's a very important privilege. But where it's being abused and it's a public officer, I think there's a way to say certain kinds of things must run through public channels.
Should be only public, and it should be reported so that every word that an elected has with another elected or regarding a public issue should absolutely be transcribed. It should be on a website for you to search. Every word that an elected says regarding a public issue should be recorded and available to the public.
Absolutely.
If we release that right now with the Florida legislature, the way it is, it's going to be an Epstein Files 2.0. But you are right. We absolutely should have clarity in government. Not only should the conversations be out there, but the financial records as well. We need a line-by-line audit of everyone in the Florida legislature, even in common municipalities, from the city all the way up to the governor's office and back. We need line-by-line audits. We need absolute clarity. And for now, while we don't have these things, what we do have are publicly recorded donations to campaigns. Everyone, when you're doing your research to decide who you're going to vote for, when you're doing your research on these local issues, follow the money. Look at who donated to them. Look at what businesses they have. Look at who they're doing business with in those businesses. Look who's part of the PACs. Everybody is so scared of PACs because they're special interest money and we don't know from who. Did you guys know that all the money that goes into and out of a PAC is also public record? You can look this stuff up.
So real quick, I want to say a couple things. The best way to get into and learn about things is just to step right into the fight. You guys are stepping into the fight right here with the data center, and I applaud you for doing that. I think it's fantastic. I do want to just jump right into the details of it if I could, because I'm just understanding now that the 836 acres got skipped. That's a huge problem, and that's a lack of political will and courage from the commissioners and also from the lawyer. And what we need, and that's why I'm asking if you're JD, because I know that you're going to be too busy to do this, but what you guys need is to challenge it and to try to get somebody else with a expert opinion saying, no, we can't absolutely fight this. So call them out for their cowardice and their corruption for not fighting for what is clear that this county, the residents of this county want. They don't want they don't want any data center, let alone the additional 836 acres added to it. So please jump on that. And if you could help with that and just take a look at it.
I can only do your case. I can get where.
Yeah, but just some kind of opinion. We don't look. Use AI. Figure something out. Honestly, I'm so serious when I say that because it's a great resource to find out other legislation that's happened around the country.
It's pretty shady from start to finish. And the slip, there was a bait. Unelected officials out because they're bringing in low-income housing. And she doesn't even have to get the commissioners. They don't work.
So you got to have a long-term game plan to get the commissioners and say, we want commissioners that will do this and this and this and have a contract with the residents of DeSoto. It has to happen politically. So you've got to recognize that, hey, this is the plan. We want to get rid of this county administrator. We want to get rid of the planning commission and move forward and organize in that way. No, I know she's not elected, but she can be fired by the county commissioners.
Right. So
Yeah, and
Rachel's gonna talk.
has to be worked in a certain way, and I have that.
They'll come up with all kinds of ways to tell you that it's not written correctly. Sorry? That's yeah, people have had some success. That, so part of the problem is lawyers, right? Not part, very large. That's one direction to go because, as you said, if they're not elected and they're just staff, they're getting this advice from somewhere else how to navigate around the rights of people, and that's the lawyers that are deciding that.
So we were actually dealing with an issue like this up in Columbus, in Georgia. I know it's farther away, but it's a good example. The city manager was extremely corrupt, right? And so we were public record requesting things, third party law firms, we vet the public record request, and he had a bunch of his buddies that, you know, they were working for the city, and this guy had it locked down, and they're a consolidated government, so it's really weird with how they funnel things. And he actually, one of my friends was up there and got a hold of some public records having to do with finances, and they weren't supposed to send him that information. They tried to get him arrested, saying that he stole it. Of course, that was bogus, so he beat that. And this was a godly man. And so he would speak up at meetings. Columbus is a little bit different in nature. My friend, they say that he committed suicide, but it was still not a closed case. Okay. And so you can bet that I'll be up in Georgia because this guy actually, the city manager, they actually fired him on finance issues and all this other stuff, people leaving the room with bags of documents that were never seen. And he rallied the community and he actually became mayor. And he's having a whole new team come in and things like that. So we'll be making a trip up to Georgia. We're going to film the data centers. And while we're up there, we're going to be looking into stuff like that and interviewing all the people that are too afraid to speak out publicly. We'll have to mask them and things like that. But you have to stay on them. You have to group up together so there's not one person that's taking this all on their back. You have to stay, like Rachel said, you know, you do have to have a documented record on these things. And I don't say this to scare you in his circumstances. This is not Columbus. But you do have to document it. You have to stay consistent and know that it takes time. It does take time to get these people out because they fight like hell to stay where they're at. And I will talk to you more about it.
I just want to make sure that all of our, because I know everybody has opinions about it, so I want to make sure all of our audience has questions answered, because we only have just a couple more minutes.
I want to go back to what I said about knowing what the rules are. Okay. I've heard a lot of misinformation this evening. Florida has a comp plan. DeSoto County has a comp plan approved by the state. If you violate that comp plan, you will find out that there's a lot of case law out there that has teeth in it, about like barracudas and sharks. There's one piece of case law that says if he gets through all of the hearings and gets approved and he builds a building, you can make him tear it down. There's a case law on that, Pinecrest, which basically a guy built 5, 6 two-story buildings in violation while it was in court and proceedings, and it was all said and done. He had to tear them down. I forgot which county it was in. But I'm telling you, we have a comp plan here. Problem we have is that our people do not know what the comp plan says, and our people do not know what the law says that governs all of it. There's a thing called very strict interpretation. In other words, the comp plan, there's a line. If this side of the law, the legislative side of the counter says it's black, when the judicial side looks at it, it has to say it's black. It can't say it's white, gray, maybe we don't like the color. It's a very strict interpretation, and that's where the courts knock these things down when the commissioners do not follow the strict interpretation of the comp plan. In our particular situation, there are about 5 particular places where the staff told them it did not qualify. But the staff was wrong in telling them, but maybe you can make up some rules that'll make it qualify. That's not quite the verbiage, but that's what it meant. Maybe if you guys want to make up some rules, you can get it fine. Well, if you read the transcript, which I paid for, there's about 50 pages of transcript over an hour of time where they talked about a lot of things, none of which had to do with curing any of the defects that had been pointed out to them. And so they went ahead and adopted. And it took me a while to figure out what they did. Then it zeroed in on that. And that's where we're going with this thing, is that you violated about 5 or 6 points of the comp plan, along with some very dubious ex parte communication disclosures, along with a violation of a conflict of interest not being reported. It was quoted on and then reported afterwards. That is up, and there also may be a advertising element. These are all the ways that you defeat that mess. And you can throw rocks at a tank all you want to. All you want to do is aggravate the guys on the inside. You're not going to damage or destroy the tank. I've been there. I've seen them with tanks. I'm telling you, you've got to learn how to defeat them through the rules committee. If you don't know what the rules are, you're not going to win. You can blast them all you want to in public. You can do everything in the world you want to. You've got to be able to find out where they make a mistake, capitalize on it. You don't do that, you're wasting your time. I'm telling you.
You're 100% right, but let me ask a presumption in your comment, sir. That enforcement, once you find where they've gone against the comp plan, that enforcement is through the courts, you're saying?
Yes, you got 30 days, and I didn't know this.
But when is the last time that was upheld in a court, a violation of the comp plan?
Actually, it was in our particular county about 2 years ago.
2 years. Okay.
Okay.
That's encouraging.
Well, what they did, and if you read the thing, they really mopped the floor with one commissioner.
Okay.
I mean, they literally did. They mopped them. And this is what I'm saying. You got 30 days. You sense there's something wrong. You got 30 days to file for a writ of certiorari. I didn't know that. There's another one you can. There's several different things. The lawyer I've got now is working on getting us into a different way, and that's where we're going in. But it's time consuming. Got a little money on the line, but if you want to do it, you step up to the plate and swing at the ball.
So, yeah.
There's 500 acres. 400 acres that is literally tied to our chairman, our commissioner. His family owns the property. Oh, right. Oh, property.
Every data center.
Yeah. So he's recused himself from the vote. He did not recuse himself from the 34 acres.
So I just want to make
34 acres was passed without a single significant ordinance. It's one of the few data centers in the entire country that's got carte blanche, and it's already passed.
I want to point out one thing. I'm really glad to hear that there was a court that addressed what the law is, what the rules are, and got it right. One of the things I do, I guess I call it gangsta litigation. I've been a litigator for 20 years, and in the time that I've been in courts, I've realized it has gone exponentially bad in the judiciary. That's why I'm talking about it. That's why it's one of the pillars of my campaign. So I consult other lawyers on how to deal with courts that are not applying the law, black letter law, correctly. How to deal with courts and adjudicators that are listening to the lies of the other side or allowing the other side to engage in obviously unlawful conduct. I have a case right now that I stepped into in which the judge in that case has failed to issue a written order at all until he was transferred somewhere else. So the things that I've seen, what I've provided here tonight is a lot of other ways also, because I feel like, again, gangsta litigation, you've got to be able to know what the direct route through the judiciary is and do that. What you're saying, do that. And also do these other things at the same time, because it's an absolute crapshoot in all of the courts. And I'm not saying that to any individual judge. I'm saying that systemically, we've seen corruption baked into everything. We desperately need repentance. We need to have a moral compass. We need to all understand what is truth. And it's just not common anymore. And so that's also the case in the courts. And so you'll find judges who are otherwise very decent people and might rule excellently on certain issues, and on others are just completely lost. And so I always operate in my profession and with all my cases, all the consulting I do for other lawyers and for my clients, I'm always presuming that it might not go in the court according to exactly what the law says it should. And that's how I advise the people when I'm talking about ways that we can resist and fight back and restore order. Okay, we're going to have one more question. Over here on your way out, there are QR codes. So if you have a question or you need to reach out to somebody, there's different individuals here. There's an email address in the middle that you can send questions to, and we'll make sure that they get to the necessary person to bring back the best answers. You have a question?
I just wondered, can we get Albritton's phone number?
It should be public record. He's a public official. Is that it? Yeah, it should be public record. So as we wrap up tonight, I first want to extend my sincere gratitude to each of our panelists, Keegan, Tim, Rachel, Eddie, Nick, Julie, Cullen. Did I get everybody? John. Thank you guys so much for sharing your time, your expertise, your perspective, and your willingness to have thoughtful conversations. Whether you came here as a candidate, an advocate, an educator, you've all given something for us to think about. I also want to thank the America First Party of Florida and Jennifer Wayman for helping make tonight's discussion possible. To the American Legion for opening your doors and providing a place where our community could come together to learn and ask questions and engage in respectful dialogue. Would love to extend our gratitude to Brother Eugene Turner, as well as the citizens who chipped in to make this event possible. Most importantly, thank you to every member of this community who chose to spend your evening here learning. Democracy works best when citizens show up. And tonight wasn't about telling everyone what to think. It wasn't about criticizing any specific project. It was about asking questions, making sure that as technology continues to evolve, our public remains cognizant and a part of the conversation. AI is no longer something that's coming someday, it's here. Whatever your views may be, I encourage you to stay informed, read the proposals, ask the questions, attend the public meetings. Everyone take a piece, right? We all don't need to be doing all the heavy lifting. If everyone comes together and takes a small piece to become more aware, more knowledgeable, there's just power in numbers. Communities don't lose their voice because someone takes it away. They lose it when they stop using it. So please make sure that we are paying attention. This one-year moratorium it's not a victory. So thank you.
Let's hear it for the moderator. Joe.
Thank you. So drive safe, take your signs. There's information on the table as well. And again, there's a blue bucket over there if anyone is inclined to help Mr. Ed Johnson with his campaign. If not, we will be getting information out to you guys shortly so you can help in other ways. Campaign.
That campaign.
Yeah,
I knew that was popular. Can we interview real quick? Should I go back next? Yeah. All right, guys, we are here live wrapping up the America First Party of Florida's AI data center conversation. Tim Ritchie, thank you for being here with us tonight. You had some good things to say. I want to just get your overall thoughts on the conversation and where you think we're headed now.
It was a great panel, great roundtable, and I think where we're headed is uncharted territory. It's pretty clear that we're going to need some legislative. I'd like to see a full ban. The moratoriums are kind of putting the brakes on and letting the data centers and the attorneys come back, start to gather all kinds of information so that they can figure out how to manipulate the county charter or the city charter. And, it's AI is here.
Yeah, it is. And
one corporation called Mosaic Fertilizer, and they have multiple water use permits And just one alone, Camden, they can pull 70 million gallons from the aquifer daily, and they can go all the way up to 89 million gallons max capacity. And it's just hard to fathom that they're going to have these AI data centers, and they've been saying they're closed loop. Well, sure, some of them are closed loop, but those loops need to be opened. They need wastewater.
Yeah.
And I've been looking into this. Wastewater is termed gray water, right? But these AI data centers, just like the water you and I drink, they need the same clean water, medically clean water. So when I hear that they're going to take gray water and they're going to run it through the system, when they're going to spend how many millions or billions of dollars on this brand new technology, and you're going to take gray water and run it through your system, I don't believe in the tooth fairy anymore.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
it. Be so much more regulated, and that's a big thing. Like in DeSoto County, it was passed without any, it was wide open.
Right.
So now they're going to have to come back in DeSoto, and they're going to have to do, they're going to have to address noise. They're going to have to address setbacks from the road. Yeah, that's exactly right. They're going. And they could have banned them. They could have, here's the thought. Instead of them always being so worried about the corporation or the LLC coming back to sue the county or the city, you know what? Maybe you should be more concerned about some citizens coming back to sue the county or the cities.
I think that's where we need to get back to, citizens getting involved like you. So thank you for what you do for the community. And you're already inspiring other people to do the same. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Good to see you.
You too.
We need to, guys, we need to fight.
I know.
I mean, I can't say exactly. I have to be real. We really legislatively.
Right now, too. It's, it's the time.
Cannot stop.
Yeah.
Nobody can stop.
Right. Oh, yes.
So, yeah, it's
Excuse me.
way worse. It's fine.
Not the vice chair.
Got one other thing of you. It's fine.
Sorry. So wait for him?
Yeah.
Both
John.
What are you gonna ask me? Why it's important for you guys to put these events together, grassroots candidates with these kind of conversations right now. We're gonna answer for that. Should we just go? Yeah, go ahead. All right, we're good.
Because everybody's going to pretty much vote party lines. So people need to get out. They need to research their candidates. They need to get out and vote on August 18th for the candidates that they want. And we have a whole list of candidates that we support. You can go on our website, which is www.manateevoterguide.com, and you can see all the candidates that we picked.
Awesome. Trent, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Thanks for putting it together again. All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, appreciate it. Let's get a attendee, someone who attended. Excuse me, sir. Do you want to be interviewed real quick? Just about what you thought about that event?
Yeah, no, I shouldn't say because I'm in favor of it.
Oh, really?
No.
That's a good conversation. You want to do it?
No, not on top.
No.
Actually, I'm going to go to the developer and help him
Okay.
because
We're filming, by the way. Just
I can't say what I want to say. It's almost like there's somebody
he
said,
doesn't want to be interviewed.
yeah,
He doesn't want to be interviewed.
no,
He doesn't want to be interviewed.
I have too much knowledge.
Okay.
It's okay. No worries.
No, believe me. Can you do me a favor? Okay, go to. I want everybody in the world, everybody that I'm interviewing. Oh,
Do you want to say something?
yeah, I'd like
All
everybody.
right, one second.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're here with an attendee of the event. He wants to say something to the people watching.
All right, my name's Kenny G, and I've lived down here and I've seen Florida for many, many years. And 2 weeks ago, I had a chance to go back to Chicago, and I visited my old town called Elk Grove Village. Now, Elk Grove Village has got 20 data centers, 7 of them hypercenters. They are the largest data center capital of the Midwest. So I went and I visited, talked to the mayor, talked to the community development, and then I actually went out and visited these data centers. These buildings are huge, but they're beautiful. So, and they're making tons of money for the park district, the school district. Nobody went to that original meeting when Sandra Duffy brought this data center to the county. Nobody went to the zoning and planning meeting when it was brought. Very few people show up until something happens, and then everybody gets stirred up. And it's really proactive. And unfortunately, it's across the country right now. And again, I encourage everybody to look at this YouTube, Elk Grove Village, Mayor Defends Data Centers. They have 20 data centers in a village of 37,000 people. Amazing.
Very interesting.
Look at.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank
Somebody went from Wing TV wanted to interview me too, but
Who was it?
Wing TV. That was a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, really?
I do go in front of all the commissioners and I stand up and I go, well, come on, guys. Like, I know you got all these people against you. Everybody thinks they're crooks.
Yeah, it's a fair point that you've said. Like they should see him from. Thinking about that.
So I'm a landscape architect for 50 years. I have a degree from Cornell University. I did a master's from University of Michigan, landscape architecture and regional planning. No one doing it here.
Makes sense. Well, you should be on there. I feel like we should have had
Yeah.
a little bit of different perspectives.
Everybody's against it. There's a future plan. I really do believe. Like, you're familiar with 31? With 31?
Not really.
Okay, so on the far side of town, it kind of brings a lot of truck traffic into the middle of town. There's plans to take 31 out around the town. You know, kind of like a bypass, which would take it up and around Rowan Road, which then allows that area for development, which is again data center. And if you have you been to the site, it's a farm country, and I guarantee you that I don't want a data center right next to my house. I don't want a pig farm right next to my house.
Yeah.
But this is farm country. It's not going to bother people. I mean, okay, do we have sporadic noise or do we have?
Right.
What I heard in Chicago, I heard airplane, and from the data center. Buildings were huge. I forgot my phone.
You're good.
The buildings were huge, but they were the size of the Walmart distribution center. They were the size of that. Wow. So, but that's code. They can build the code. So if the code allows that, and you catch it allows it, why not?
Fair point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
What?
It's with yarn.
Good to ask, because at first he was like, no, and then he did. So.
Can we get the card? Like
Yeah, I don't have any in my pocket.
Because see, not everybody is
I
against
know.
data centers, and not everybody's fucking.
I wish that on All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning into our live coverage here in Arcadia of the AI data center conversation with the American First Party of Florida. We want to thank them, but we also want to thank all the people that came out, and as well as you guys watching. Let us know your thoughts about these AI data centers. There's some differing of opinions. We had a panel of people that were not in favor of them, but then we talked to an attendee who was more in favor of them. So there is some differences in opinion, and I think that's a good thing that we're having the hard conversations right now. So make sure you do your research before you start talking, and also make sure you do your research on the candidates because we're just weeks away